8:11 p.m., 8/20/2024. Late start tonight, so I don't have a long time to talk, but I'm going to talk while I get the time to do it. Finished The 10th Man yesterday. Kind of went over my head a little bit, and I listened back to the third act, and it was starting to settle a little bit more. I think sometimes when I read these out loud, I'm more focused on reading than I am taking the text in itself. But I read these out loud to kind of break that invisible wall of insecurity, or that invisible wall of I guess insecurity and fear, and to like loosen up and get comfortable with reading things that were seemingly imposing to me. So, a long time ago, I came across the Iceman Cometh, and I didn't read it. I'd heard of the title. I'm attracted to good titles, and just as it was then as it is now, the Iceman Cometh is a good title. It's a curious title. I think it draws you in. I think it's attractive, and it's telling of what the play is and will be, if you hadn't read it before. So my first introduction was, I can't remember when. I think it might have been when Annette Bening might have talked about her run of it. I want to say maybe it was before. Because if you attend school, take English class, and pay a little bit of attention, you're not going to hear about Shakespeare or just well-known, well-regarded playwrights. I don't know if we talked about Eugene O'Neill, but I feel like we did. I feel like his name came across somewhere, and I struggle to name any other playwright other than Shakespeare. But I don't remember us ever reading like Tennessee Williams or David Mamet or any others that I can't grasp because I'm hyper focused on this particular play. But I had heard it. I'm sure I'd heard it referenced in like the Simpsons or something, and I'd heard it referenced in pop culture somewhere. So I'd always been intrigued in the title. And then fast forward some years, I started browsing the stacks at the library because I'm even still to this day, I'm attracted to physical media. It's very difficult to make a full leap into digital. There's something about holding a book or having a closet full of DVDs, a room, where it's a makeshift library, and you worry about the weight of the books on bearing down on the floor. It can be very claustrophobic, but it's also very comforting to have other people's works around you, and it's not just a file that you bring up on your computer or your phone or your whatever other devices. It's you're holding it. And back to the library at the stacks, at a certain time I was drawn to just picking up titles at random for whatever purpose. And coincidentally, I was picking up titles that were play adaptations on film adaptations of plays. There we go. And I had watched The Glass Menagerie with Catherine Hepburn and not Tom, I forget the dude's name. Let me see. And I can't remember who plays. Um, let's see. It's gonna bother me until I'm gonna waste time looking it up. Laura. Is it 73? Yeah. Sam Watterson. That's who it is. And Joanna Miles and Michael Moriarty. I had watched The Glass Menagerie and liked it a lot. And that kind of busted the door open into my curiosity for plays and playwrights. And so I watched The Glass Menagerie, and in browsing the stacks, I came across an adaptation of The Iceman Cometh. The one with, I think, Robert Redford and let's see, Jeff Bridges. And it's, let's see, 1973, John Frankenheimer, brilliant director. Leah Marvin, I think, is Henry Hickey, or Theodore Hickey. When Frederick March is Harry Hope. And I'll be honest, I watched this adaptation and I was pretty lost. And again, I've talked about this a little bit. Once I kind of get lost in a film or whatever it is I'm taking in, unless I go back and reread it or rewatch it, I'm kind of done in, and then I'm just sitting there reading something or watching something with no tie to it because I can't connect because I don't know what the hell's going on. So I watched this adaptation, and it's not because it was bad. It was because it's just a mammoth play, and one in which was described as kind of this circumnavigational vortex until it hits a nuclear epicenter, by Eugene O'Neill. And Eugene O'Neill was winding down towards the end of his life, writing the things that he had been, I think, working up the nerve to confront. And alcoholism in his family was very prominent, and alcoholism in his life was very prominent and detrimental to his life. I mean, he drew upon it for great things, but great writing. But I think it cost him a lot too, and it certainly cost his brother a lot. And there's a PBS documentary on Eugene O'Neill that I've seen like 10 times that I finally ended up buying because YouTube kept taking it down. And let me see. It's called Eugene O'Neill. Oh, shit. I can't. It's like PBS, like American Masters. And it's the episode of Eugene O'Neill. Now I gotta close all my other tabs or else it'll fuck this up. Okay. And it's excellent. And they were talking about the Iceman Cometh and the construction of it. Shit. Hang on. I'll be right back. try to have everything ready, everything done before I start, and then I get thrown off course. Um, yeah, so this PBS Eugene O'Neill program I've seen easily 10 times, and it's very clear that Eugene is working out his family's, what he feels about his family and his personal struggles with alcoholism through his writing. And a big theme of this play, and I haven't read the play yet, is pipe dreams, and how that keeps people going, the things that are very personal to them, the things that keep them trudging along, but also how they can be very destructive to people's lives. And I didn't plan to read The Iceman Cometh, but I'm at a point where I've put it off and put it off and put it off, and I'm chronically online, and if I'm going to be chronically online, I might as well be productive. And I'm kind of thinking, well, why not? Why not just read it out loud? And I want to make it very clear that this is not professional. This is just a casual reading. I'm even hesitant to put like The Iceman Cometh in the title because I don't want people to think this is like a theatrical reading. This is just a casual exercise. But I've always been curious about this play, and it's kind of one of the main plays, along with like Long Day's Journey into Night and The Glass Menagerie, that kind of got me into plays. The curiosity of The Iceman Cometh has always been lingering over my head, and I've never actually read it. So why not now? So I think I don't want to make like 20 videos reading through this play that's over 100 pages, but I think that's what's going to happen. So I don't mind doing it unless I get tired of it in the race season, but why not? Why not read The Iceman Cometh on my YouTube channel? So here we go. And if I don't like it, I'll erase it. The Iceman Cometh by Eugene O'Neill. The characters: Harry Hope, proprietor of a saloon and rooming house; Ed Mosher, Hope's brother-in-law, one-time circus man; Pat McGloin, one-time police lieutenant; Willie Obon, a Harvard Law School alumnus; Joe Mott, one-time proprietor of a Negro gambling house; Piet Wetjoen, the general, one-time leader of a Boer commando; Cecil Lewis, the captain, one-time captain of British infantry; James Cameron, Jimmy Tomorrow, a one-time Boer War correspondent; Hugo Calmer, one-time editor of anarchist periodicals; Larry Slade, one-time syndicalist anarchist; Rocky Pioggi, night bartender; Don Parrott, and politely named streetwalkers, the Hooers, are Pearl, Margie, and Cora; Chuck Morello as the day bartender; Theodore Hickman Hickey, a hardware salesman; Moran Lieb, and Rumors at Harry Hope's. I don't know if it's a flop house, but with Rot Gut Whiskey. I think this was kind of based on his Eugene O'Neill's struggles when he was in his early 20s, kind of drinking himself to death. So this is upbeat. Not really. But let's dive in. Let's set up the play. Okay, you have the scenes in 4 different acts. Act 1, the scene is the back room and a section of the bar at Harry Hope's, early morning in summer 1912. Act 2 is the scene back room around midnight of the same day. Act 3, a bar and a section of the back room, morning of the following day. And Act 4, same as Act 1, back room and a section of the bar around 1:30 a.m. of the next day. I do know what happens in the play because I spoiled it for myself, but I haven't read the entire play, and maybe I'll reread the setups for the following acts. But let's set the scene. Harry Hope's is a Rains Law hotel of the period, a cheap gin mill of the 5-cent whiskey, last resort variety situated on the downtown west side of New York. The building, owned by Hope, is a narrow 5-story structure of the tenement type, the second floor a flat occupied by the proprietor. The renting of rooms on the upper floors under the Rains Law loopholes makes the establishment legally a hotel and gives it the privilege of serving liquor in the back room of the bar after closing hours and on Sundays, provided a meal is served with the booze, thus making a back room legally a hotel restaurant. The food provision was generally circumvented by putting a property sandwich in the middle of each table, an old desiccated ruin of dust-laden bread and mumbled ham or cheese, which only the drunkest yokel from the sticks ever regarded as anything but a noisome table decoration. Noisome. But at Harry Hope's, Hope being a former minor Tammonite and still possessing friends, this food technicality is irrelevant, except during the fleeting alarms of reform agitation. Even Hope's back room is not a separate room, but simply the rear of the bar room, divided from the bar by drawing a dirty black curtain across the room. Okay. So the Iceman Cometh, Act 1. The scene is back room and a section of the bar at Harry Hope's, early morning in summer 1912. Iceman Cometh, Act 1. This is casual, remember, I'm not an actor. Let's go. Scene. The back room and a section of the bar of Harry Hope's saloon on an early morning in summer 1912. The right wall of the back room is a dirty black curtain which separates it from the bar. At rear, this curtain is drawn back from the wall so the bartender can get in and out. The back room is crammed with round tables and chairs placed so close together that it is a difficult squeeze to pass between them. In the middle of the rear wall is a door opening on a hallway. In the left corner, built out into the room, is the toilet with a sign, "This is it," on the door. Against the middle of the left wall is a nickel-in-the-slot phonograph. 2 windows, so glazed with grime one cannot see through them, are in the left wall looking out on a backyard. The walls and ceiling once were white, but it was a long time ago, and they are now so splotched, peeled, stained, and dusty that their color can best be described as dirty. The floor, with iron spittoons placed here and there, is covered with sawdust. Lighting comes from single-wall brackets, 2 at left and 2 at rear. There are 3 rows of tables from front to back. There are in the front line, the one at the left front has 4 chairs, the one at center front 4, the one at right front 5. At rear of and half between front tables 1 and 2 is a table of the second row with 5 chairs. A table similarly placed at rear of front tables 2 and 3 also has 5 chairs. The third row of tables, 4 chairs to one and 6 to the other, is against the rear wall on either side of the door. At right of this dividing curtain is a section of the barroom with the end of the bar seen at rear, a door to the hall at left of it. At front is a table with 4 chairs. Light comes from the street windows off right, the gray subdued light of early morning in a narrow street. In the back room, Larry Slade and Hugo Calmar are at the table at left front. Hugo in a chair facing right, Larry at rear of table facing front, with an empty chair between them. A fourth chair is at right of table facing left. Hugo is a small man in his late 50s. He has a head much too big for his body, a high forehead, crinkly long black hair streaked with gray, a square face with a pug nose, a walrus mustache, black eyes which peer nearsightedly from behind thick-lensed spectacles, tiny hands and feet. He is dressed in threadbare black clothes and his white shirt is frayed at collar and cuffs, but everything about him is fastidiously clean. Even his flowing Windsor tie is neatly tied. There is a foreign atmosphere about him, the stamp of an alien radical, a strong resemblance to the type anarchist as portrayed, bomb in hand in newspaper cartoons. He is asleep now, bent forward in his chair, his arms folded on the table, his head resting sideways on his arms. Larry Slade is 60. He is tall, raw-boned, with coarse straight white hair, worn long and raggedly cut. He has a gaunt Irish face with a big nose, high cheekbones, a lantern jaw with a weak stubble of beard, a mystic's meditative pale blue eyes with a gleam of sharp sardonic humor in them. As slovenly as Hugo is neat, his clothes are dirty and much slept in. His gray flannel shirt, open at the neck, has the appearance of having never been washed. From the way he methodically scratches himself with his long-fingered hairy hands, he is lousy and reconciled to being so. He is the only occupant of the room who is not asleep. He stares in front of him, an expression of tired tolerance giving his face the quality of a pitying but wary old priest. All four chairs at the middle table front are occupied. Joe Mott sits at left front of the table facing front. Behind him, facing right front, is Piet Wotjoen, the general. At center of the table rear, James Cameron, Jimmy Tomorrow, sits facing front. At right of Joe is Cecil Lewis, the captain. Joe Mott is a Negro about 50 years old, brown-skinned, stocky, wearing a light suit that had once been flashily sporty but is now about to fall apart. His pointed tan button shoes, faded pink shirt, and bright tie belong to the same vintage. Still, he manages to preserve an atmosphere of nattiness, and there is nothing dirty about his appearance. His face is only mildly negroid in type. The nose is thin, and his lips are not noticeably thick. His hair is crinkly, and he is beginning to get bald. A scar from a knife slash runs from his left cheekbone to his jaw. His face would be hard and tough if it were not for its good nature and lazy humor. He is asleep, his nodding head supported by his left hand. Piet Wetjoen, the Boer, is in his 50s, a huge man with a bald head and a long, grizzled beard. He is slovenly dressed in a dirty, shapeless patch suit spotted by food, a Dutch farmer type. His once great muscular strength has been debauched into flaccid tallow. But despite his blubbery mouth and sodden bloodshot blue eyes, there is still a suggestion of old authority lurking in him like a memory of the drowned. He is hunched forward, both elbows on the table, his hands on each side of his head for support. James Cameron, Jimmy Tomorrow, is about the same size and age as Hugo, a small man. Like Hugo, he wears threadbare black and everything about him is clean. But the resemblance ceases there. Jimmy has a face like an old, well-bred, gentle bloodhound's, with folds of flesh hanging from each side of his mouth, and big brown, friendly, guileless eyes, more bloodshot than any bloodhounds ever were. He has a mouse-colored, thinning hair, a little bulbous nose, buck teeth, and a small rabbit mouth. But his forehead is fine. His eyes are intelligent, and there once was a competent ability in him. His speech is educated with the ghost of a Scotch rhythm in it. His manners are those of a gentleman. There is a quality about him of a prim, Victorian old maid, and at the same time of a likable, affectionate boy who has never grown up. He sleeps, chin on chest, hands folded in his lap. Cecil Lewis, the captain, is as obviously English as Yorkshire pudding, and just as obviously the former army officer. He is going on 60. His hair and military mustache are white, his eyes bright blue, his complexion that of a turkey. His lean figure is still erect and square-shouldered. He is stripped to the waist, his coat, shirt, undershirt, collar, and tie crushed up into a pillow on the table in front of him. His head sideways on this pillow, facing front, his arms dangling toward the floor. On his lower left shoulder is the big ragged scar of an old wound. At the table at right front, Harry Hope, the proprietor, sits in the middle facing front with Pat McGloin on his right and Ed Mosher on his left, the other two chairs being unoccupied. Both McGloin and Mosher are big, paunchy men. McGloin has his old occupation of policeman stamped all over him. He is in his 50s, sandy-haired, bullet-headed, jowly, with protruding ears and little round eyes. His face must have once been brutal and greedy, but time and whiskey have melted it down into a good-humored parasite's characterlessness. He wears old clothes and is slovenly. He is slumped sideways on his chair, his head drooping jerkily toward one shoulder. Ed Mosher is going on 60. He has a round Cupid's face. A Cupid who is an unshaven habitual drunkard. He looks like an enlarged elderly bald edition of the village fat boy, a sly fat boy, congenitally indolent, a practical joker, a born grifter and con merchant, but amusing and essentially harmless even in his most enterprising days because always too lazy to carry crookedness beyond petty swindling. The influence of his old circus career is apparent in his getup. His worn clothes are flashy. He wears phony rings and a heavy brass watch chain, not connected to a watch. Like McGloin, he is slovenly. His head is thrown back, his big mouth open. Harry Hope is 60, white-haired, so thin the description bag of bones was made for him. He has the face of an old family horse prone to tantrums, with bulkiness always smoldering in its wall eyes, waiting for any excuse to shy and pretend to take the bit in its teeth. Hope is one of those men whom everyone likes on sight, a soft-hearted slob without malice, feeling superior to no one, a sinner among sinners, a born easy mark for every appeal. He attempts to hide his defenselessness behind a testy, truculent manner, but this has never fooled anyone. He is a little deaf, but not half as deaf as he sometimes pretends. His sight is failing, but is not as bad as he complains it is. He wears 5 and 10-cent store spectacles, which are so out of alignment that one eye at times peers half over one glass, while the other eye looks half under the other. He has badly fitting store teeth, which click like castanets when he begins to fume. He is dressed in an old coat from one suit and pants from another. In a chair, facing right at the table in the second line, between the first 2 tables, front, sits Willie O'Ban, his head on his left arm outstretched along the table edge. He is in his late 30s, of average height, thin. His haggard, dissipated face has a small nose, a pointed chin, blue eyes with colorless lashes and brows. His blonde hair, badly in need of a cut, clings in a limp part to his skull. His eyelids flutter continually as if any light were too strong for his eyes. The clothes he wears belong on a scarecrow. They seem constructed of an inferior grade of dirty blotting paper. His shoes are even more disreputable. Wrecks of imitation leather, one laced with twine, the other with a bit of wire. He has no socks, and his bare feet show through holes in the soles, with his big toes sticking out of the uppers. He keeps muttering and twitching in his sleep. As the curtain rises, Rocky, the night bartender, comes from the bar through the curtain and stands looking over the back room. He is a Neapolitan American in his late 20s, squat and muscular, with a flat, swarthy face and beady eyes. The sleeves of his colorless shirt are rolled up on his thick, powerful arms, and he wears a soiled apron. A tough guy, but sentimental in his way and good-natured. He signals to Larry with a cautious tss and motions him to see if Hope is asleep. Larry rises from his chair to look at Hope and nods to Rocky. Rocky goes back in the bar, but immediately returns with a bottle of bar whiskey and a glass. He squeezes between the tables to Larry. Rocky, in a low voice out of the side of his mouth. Make it fast. Larry pours a drink and gulps it down. Rocky takes the bottle and puts it on the table where Willie Oban is. Don't want the boss to get wise when he's got one of his tightwad buns on. He chuckles with an amused glance at Hope. Geez, ain't the old bastard a riot when he starts that bull about turning over a new leaf. Not a damn to drink on the house, he tells me. And all these bums got to pay up their room rent beginning tomorrow, he says. Jeez, you'd think he meant it. He sits down in the chair at Larry's left. Larry, grinning. I'll be glad to pay up. Tomorrow. And I know my fellow inmates will promise the same. They have all a touching credulity concerning tomorrow's, a half-drunken mockery in his eye. It'll be a great day for them tomorrow, the Feast of All Fools, with brass bands playing. Their ships will come in loaded to the gunwales with canceled regrets and promises fulfilled and clean slates and new leases. Rocky, cynically. Yeah, and a ton of hop. Larry leans toward him, a comical intensity in his low voice. Don't mock the faith. Have you no respect for religion, you unregenerate wop? What's it the matter if the truth is that their favoring breeze has the stink of nickel whiskey on its breath, and their sea is a growler of lager and ale, and their ships are long since looted and scuttled and sunk on the bottom? To hell with the truth. As the history of the world proves, the truth has no bearing on anything. It's irrelevant and immaterial, as the lawyers say. The lie of a pipe dream is what gives life to the whole misbegotten mad lot of us, drunk or sober. And that's enough philosophic wisdom to give you for one drink of rotgut. Rocky grins kiddingly. The old philosopher, like Hickey calls you, ain't ya? I suppose you don't fall for no pipe dream. Larry, a bit stiffly. I don't, no. Mine are all dead and buried behind me. What's before me is the comforting fact that death is a fine, long sleep. And I'm damned tired. And it can't come too soon for me. Rocky. Yeah, just hanging around hoping you'll croak, ain't ya? Well, I'm betting you'll have a good long wait. Geez, somebody will have to take an axe to croak you. Larry grins. Yes, it's my bad luck to be cursed with an iron constitution that even Harry's booze can't corrode. Rocky. The old anarchist wise guy that knows all the answers. That's you, huh? Larry frowns. Forget the anarchist part of it. I'm through with the movement long since. I saw men didn't want to be saved from themselves, for that would mean they'd have to give up greed, and they'll never pay that price for liberty. So I said to the world, God bless all here, and may the best man win and die of gluttony. And I took a seat in the grandstand of philosophical detachment to fall asleep observing the cannibals do their death dance. He chuckles at his own fancy. Reaches, shakes Hugo's shoulder. Ain't I telling him the truth, Comrade Hugo? Rocky. For Christ's sake, don't get that bunkhouse bum started. Hugo. raises his head and peers at Rocky blearily through his thick spectacles in a guttural declamatory tone. Capitalist swine, bourgeois stool pigeons. Have the slaves no right to sleep even? Then he grins at Rocky and his manner changes to a giggling, wheedling playfulness, as though he were talking to a child. Hello, little Rocky, little monkey face, where is your little slave girls? With an abrupt change to a bullying tone. Don't be a fool. Loan me $1. Damn bourgeois wop. The great Malatesta is my good friend. Buy me a drink. He seems to run down and is overcome by drowsiness. His head sinks to the table again, and he is at once fast asleep. Rocky. He's out again, more exasperated than angry. He's lucky no one don't take his crack serious, or he'd wake up every morning in a hospital. Larry. Regarding Hugo with pity. No one takes him seriously. That's his epitaph. Not even the comrades anymore. If I've been through with a movement long since, it's been through with him, and thanks to whiskey, he's the only one who doesn't know it. Rocky. I've let him get by with too much. He's going to pull that slave girl stuff on me once too often. His manner changes to defensive argument. Hell, you'd think I was a pimp or something. Everybody knows I ain't. A pimp don't hold no job. I'm a bartender. Them tarts, Margie and Boyle. They're just a sideline to pick up some extra dough. Strictly business, like they was fighters and I was their manager, see. I fix the cops for them so they can hustle without getting pinched. Hell, they'd be on the island most of the time if it weren't for me. And I don't beat 'em up like a pimp would. I treat 'em fine. They like me. We're pals, see? What if I do take their dough? They'd only throw it away. Tarts can't hang on to dough. But I'm a bartender. And I work hard for my living in this dump. You know that, Larry. Larry, with inner sardonic amusement, flatteringly. Shrewd businessman who doesn't miss any opportunity to get on in the world. That's what I'd call you. Rocky, pleased. Sure thing. That's me. Grab another ball, Larry. Larry pours a drink from the bottle on Willie's table and gulps it down. Rocky glances around the room. You'd never think all these bums had a good bed upstairs to go to. Scared if they hit the hay, they wouldn't be here when Hickey showed up, and they'd miss a couple of drinks. That's what kept you up too, ain't it? Larry. It is. But not so much the hope of booze, if you can believe that. I've got the blues, and Hickey's a great one to make a joke of everything and cheer you up. Rocky. Yeah, some kidder. Remember how he wakes up about that gang about his wife when he's cockeyed crying over her picture and then springing it on you all of a sudden that he left her in the hay with the Iceman? He laughs. I wonder what's happened to him. You can set your watch by his periodicals before this. Always got here a couple of days before Harry's birthday party, and now he's only got till tonight to make it. I hope he shows soon. This dump is like the morgue with all these bums passed out. Willie Oban jerks and twitches in his sleep and begins to tumble. I watch him. Willie blurts from his dream. It's a lie! Miserably, Papa, Papa. Larry. Poor devil. Then angry with himself. But to hell with pity. It does no good. I'm through with it. Rocky. Dreaming about his old man. From what the old-timers say, the old gent sure made a pile of dough in the bucket shop game before the cops got him. He considers Willie frowningly. Jeez. I've seen him bad before, but never this bad. Look at that get-up. Been playing the old reliever game. Sold his suit and shoes at Sully's 2 days ago. Sully gave him $2 and a bum outfit. Yesterday, he sells the bum one back to Sully for 4 bits and gets these rags to put on. Now he's through. That's Sully. That's Sully's final edition he wouldn't take back for nothin'. Willie sure is on the bottom. I ain't never seen no one so bad except Hickey on the end of a couple of his bats. Larry sardonically. It's a great game, the pursuit of happiness. Rocky. Harry don't know what to do about him. He called up his old lady's lawyer like he does when Willie gets licked. You remember they used to send down the private dick to give him the rush to a cure, but the lawyer tells Harry nix. The old lady's off of Willie for keeps this time, and he can go to hell. Larry watches Willie, who is shaking in his sleep like an old dog. There's the consolation that he hasn't far to go. As if replying to this, Willie comes to a crisis of jerks and moans. Larry adds in a comically intense, crazy whisper, "God, he's knocking on the door right now." Willie suddenly yells in his nightmare, "It's a goddamned lie!" He begins to sob. Papa Jesus. All the occupants of the room stir on their chairs, but none of them wakes up except Hope. Rocky grabs his shoulder and shakes him. "Hey you! Nix! Cut out that noise." Willie opens his eyes to stare around him with a bewildered horror. Hope opens one eye to peer over his spectacles drowsily. "Who's that yellin'?" Rocky. "Willie, boss. The Brooklyn boys is after him." Hope, querulously. "Why don't you give the poor fella a drink and keep him quiet?" "But geez, can't I get a wink of sleep in my own back room?" Rocky, indignantly to Larry. "Listen to that blind-eyed default bastard, will ya? He give me strict orders not to let Willie hang up no more drinks, no matter—" Hope mechanically puts a hand to his ear in the gesture of deafness. "What's th-" "I can't hear you." Then drowsily irascible. "You're a cockeyed liar. Never refused a drink to anyone needed it bad in my life. Told you to use your judgment. Ought to know better. You're too busy thinking up ways to cheat me." "Oh, I ain't as blind as you think. I can still see a cash register. But jeez." Rocky grins at him affectionately now, flatteringly. "Sure, boss. Swell chance of fooling you." Hope. "I'm wise to you and your sidekick, Chuck. But geez, you're burglars, not barkeeps. Blind-eyed default bastard, am I? Oh, I heard you. Heard you often when you didn't think. You and Chuck laughing behind my back, telling people you throw the money up in the air and whatever sticks to the ceiling is my share. A fine couple of crooks. You'd steal the pennies off your dead mother's eyes." Rocky winks at Larry. "Aw, Harry. Me and Chuck was only kiddin'." Hope, more drowsily. "I'll fire both of you. But geez, if you think you can play me for an easy mark, you've come to the wrong house. No one ever played Harry Hope for a sucker." Rocky. To Larry. "No one but everybody." Hope. His eyes shut again. Mutters. "Least you could do. Keeping things quiet." He falls asleep. Willie, pleadingly. "Give me a drink, Rocky. Harry said it was all right. God, I need a drink." Rocky, "Then grab it. It's right under your nose." Willie, avidly. "Thanks." He takes the bottle with both twitching hands and tilts it to his lips and gulps down the whiskey in big swallows. Rocky, sharply. When? He grabs the bottle. "I didn't say take a bath." Showing the bottle to Larry indignantly. "Geez, look, he's killed half a pint or more." He turns on Willie angrily, but Willie has closed his eyes and is sitting quietly, shuddering, waiting for the effect. Larry, with a pitying glance. "Leave him be. The poor devil. A half pint of that dynamite in one swig will fix him for a while if it doesn't kill him." Rocky shrugs his shoulders and sits down again. "All right by me. It ain't my booze." Behind him in the chair at left of the middle table, Joe Mott the Negro has been waking up. Joe, his eyes blinking sleepily. Whose booze? Give me some. I don't care whose. Where's Hickey? Ain't he come yet? What time's it, Rocky? Rocky, getting near time to open up. Time you begun to sweep up in the bar. Joe, lazily. Never mind the time. If Hickey ain't come, it's time Joe goes to sleep again. I was dreaming Hickey come in the door cracking one of them drummer's jokes, waving a big bankroll, and we was all going to be drunk for 2 weeks. Wake up, and no luck. Suddenly, his eyes open wide. Wait a minute, though. I got an idea. Say, Larry, how about that young guy Parrott come to look you up last night and rented a room? Where's he at? Larry, up in his room, asleep. No hope in him anyway, Joe. He's broke. Joe, that what he told you? Me and Rocky knows different. Had a roll when he paid you his room rent, didn't he, Rocky? I seen it. Rocky, yeah. He flashed it like he forgot and then tried to hide it quick. Larry, surprised and resentful. He did he? Rocky, yeah. I figured he don't belong, but he said he was a friend of yours. Larry, he's a liar. I wouldn't know him if he hadn't told me who he was. His mother and I were friends years ago on the coast. He hesitates, then lowering his voice. You've read in the papers about that bombing on the coast when several people got killed? Well, the one woman they pinched, Rosa Parrott, is his mother. They'll be coming up for trial soon, and there's no chance for them. She'll get life, I think. I'm telling you this so you'll know why if Don acts a bit queer and not jump on him. He must be hard hit. He's her only kid. Rocky nods, then thoughtfully, why ain't he out there sticking by her? Larry frowns. Don't ask questions. Maybe there's a good reason. Rocky stares at him understandingly. Sure, I get it. Then wonderingly, but then what kind of a sap is he to hang on to his right name? Larry irritably, I'm telling you, I don't know anything and I don't want to know. To hell with the movement and all connected with it, I'm out of it, and everything else and damned glad to be. Rocky shrugs his shoulders indifferently. Well, don't think I'm interested in this Parrott guy, he's nothing to me. Joe, me neither. If there's one thing more than another I cares nothing about, it's the sucker game you and Hugo called the movement. He chuckles reminiscently. Reminds me of damn full argument me and Mose Porter has the other night. He's drunk and he says, socialist and anarchist, we ought to shoot him dead. They's all no good sons of bitches, I says. I says, hold on, if anarchists and socialists was the same. They is, he says. They's both no good bastards. No, they ain't, I says. I'll explain the difference. The anarchist never works. He drinks, but he never buys. And if he do ever get a nickel, he blows it on bombs. And he wouldn't give you nothing. So go ahead and shoot him. But the socialist, sometimes he's got a job. And if he gets $10, he's bound by his religion to split 50-50 with you. You say, how about my cut, comrade? And you gets to 5. So you don't shoot no socialists while I'm around. That is, if they got anything. Of course, if they's broke, then they's no good bastards too. He laughs, immensely tickled. Larry grins with sardonic appreciation. Begod, Joe, you've got all the beauty of the human nature and the practical wisdom of the world in that little parable. Rocky winks at Joe. Sure. Larry ain't the only wise guy in this dump, eh, Joe? At a sound from the hall, he turns as Don Parrott appears in the doorway. Rocky speaks to Larry out of the side of his mouth. Here's your guy. Parrott comes forward. He is 18, tall and broad-shouldered, but thin, gangling and awkward. His face is good-looking, with blonde curly hair and large regular features, but his personality is unpleasant. There is a shifting defiance and ingratiation in his light blue eyes and an irritating aggressiveness in his manner. His clothes and shoes are new, comparatively expensive, sporty in style. He looks as though he belonged in a pool room patronized by would-be sports. He glances around defensively, sees Larry, and comes forward. Parrot. Hello, Larry. He nods to Rocky and Joe. Hello. They nod and size him up with expressionless eyes. Larry, without cordiality. What's up? I thought you'd be asleep. Parrot. Couldn't make it. I got sick of lying awake. Thought I might as well see if you were around. Larry indicates the chair on the right of the table. Sit down and join the bums then. Parrot sits down. Larry adds meaningfully. The rules of the house are that drinks may be served at all hours. Parrot, forcing a smile. I getcha, but hell, I'm just about broke. He catches Rocky's and Joe's contemptuous glances quickly. Oh, I know you guys saw. You think I've got a roll? Well, you're all wrong. I'll show you. He takes a small wad of dollar bills from his pocket. It's all ones. I've got to live on it till I get a job. Then, with defensive truculence, you think I fixed up a phony, don't you? Why the hell would I? Where would I get a real roll? You don't get rich doing what I've been doing. Ask Larry. You're lucky to get in the movement if you have enough to eat. Larry regards him puzzledly. Rocky, coldly. What's the song and dance about? We ain't said nothin'. Parrot, lamely placating the now. Why, I was just putting you right, but I don't want you to think I'm a tightwad. I'll buy a drink if you want one. Joe, cheering up. If? Man, when I don't want a drink, you'll call the morgue and tell him to come take Joe's body away. Because he's sure enough dead. Give me the bottle quick, Rocky, before he changes his mind. Rocky passes him the bottle and glass. He pours a brimful drink and tosses it down his throat and hands the bottle and glass to Larry. Rocky. I'll take a cigar when I go into bar. What are you having? Parrot. Nothing, I'm on the wagon. What's the damage? He holds out a dollar bill. Rocky. 15 cents. He makes change from his pocket. Parrot. Must be some booze. Larry. It's cyanide cut with carbolic acid to give it a mellow flavor. Here's luck. He drinks. Rocky. Guess I'll get back into bar and catch a couple of winks before opening up time. He squeezes through the tables and disappears, right rear behind the curtain. In the section of bar at right, he comes forward and sits at the table and slumps back, closing his eyes and yawning. Joe stares calculatingly at Parrot and then looks away, aloud to himself philosophically. One drunk guy. That well done run dry. No hope till Harry's birthday party. Less Hickey shows up. He turns to Larry. If Hickey comes, Larry, you wake me up if you has to bat me with a chair. He settles himself and immediately falls to sleep. Parrot. Who's Hickey? Larry. A hardware drummer. An old friend of Harry Hope's and all the gang. He's a grand guy. He comes here twice a year regularly on a periodical drunk and blows in all his money. Parrot. With a disparaging glance around. Must be hard up for a place to hang out. Larry. It has its points for him. He never runs into anyone he knows in his business here. Parrot, lowering his voice. Yes, that's what I want too. I've got to stay undercover, Larry, like I told you last night. Larry. You did a lot of hinting. You didn't tell me anything. Parrot. You can guess, can't you? He changes the subject abruptly. I've been in some dumps on the coast, but this is the limit. What kind of a joint is it, anyway? Larry, with a sardonic grin. What is it? It's the No Chance Saloon. It's Bedrock Bar, the end-of-the-line cafe, the bottom-of-the-sea Rathskeller. Don't you notice the beautiful calm in the atmosphere? That's because it's the last harbor. No one here has to worry about where they're going next because there is no farther they can go. It's a great comfort to them. Although even here they keep up appearances of life with a few harmless pipe dreams about their yesterdays and tomorrows, as you'll see for yourself if you're here long. Parrot, curiously. What's your pipe dream, Larry? Larry, hiding resentment. Oh, I'm the exception. I haven't any left, thank God. Shortly. Don't complain about this place. You couldn't find a better for lying low. Parrot. I'm glad of that, Larry. I don't feel any too damned good. I was knocked off my base by that business on the coast, and since then it's been no fun dodging around the country, thinking every guy you see might be a dick. Larry, sympathetically now. No, it wouldn't be. But you're safe here. The cops ignore this dump. They think it's as harmless as a graveyard. He grins sardonically, and begod, they're right. Parrot. It's been lonely as hell. Impulsively. Christ, Larry. I was glad to find you. I kept saying to myself, if I can only find Larry, he's the one guy in the world who can understand. He hesitates, staring at Larry with a strange appeal. Larry, watching him puzzledly. Understand what? Parrot, hastily. Why, all I've been through. Looking away. Oh, I know you're thinking. This guy has a hell of a nerve. I haven't seen him since he was a kid. I've forgotten he was alive. But I've never forgotten you, Larry. You were the only friend of Mother's who ever paid attention to me or knew I was alive. All the others were too busy with the movement. Even Mother. And I had no old man. You used to take me on your knee and tell me stories and crack jokes and make me laugh. You'd ask me questions and take what I said seriously. I guess I got to feel in the years you lived with us that you'd taken the place of my old man, embarrassedly. But hell, that sounds like a lot of mush. I suppose you don't remember a damned thing about it. Larry moved in spite of himself. I remember well. You were a serious, lonely little shaver. Then, resenting being moved, changes the subject. How is it they didn't pick you up when they got your mother and the rest? Parrot, in a lowered voice but eagerly, as if he wanted this chance to tell about it. I wasn't around, and as soon as I heard the news, I went undercover. You've noticed my glad rags. I was staked to them, as a disguise, sort of. I hung around pool rooms and gambling joints and hooker shops, where they'd never look for a wobbly, pretending I was a sport. Anyway, they'd grabbed everyone important, so I suppose they didn't think of me until afterward. Larry. The papers say the cops got them all dead to rights. That the Burns dicks knew every move before it was made, and someone inside the movement must have sold out and tipped them off. Parrot. Turns to look Larry in the eyes, slowly. Yes. I guess that must be true, Larry. It hasn't come out who it was. It may never come out. I suppose whoever it was made a bargain with the Burns men to keep him out of it. They won't need his evidence. Larry, tensely. By God, I hate to believe it of any of the crowd. If I am through long since with any connection with them. I know they're damned fools, most of them, as stupidly greedy for power as the worst capitalists they attack. But I'd swear there couldn't be a yellow stool pigeon among them. Parrot. Sure. I'd have sworn that too, Larry. Larry. I hope his soul rots in hell, whoever it is. Parrot. Yes, so do I. Larry, after a pause, shortly. How did you locate me? I hoped I'd found a place of retirement here where no one in the movement would ever come to disturb my peace. Parrot. I found out through Mother. Larry. I asked her not to tell anyone. Parrot. She didn't tell me, but she'd kept all your letters, and I found where she'd hidden them in the flat. I sneaked up there one night after she was arrested. Larry. I'd never thought she was a woman who'd keep letters. Parrot. No, I wouldn't either. There's nothing soft or sentimental about Mother. Larry. I never answered her letters. I haven't written her in a couple of years. Or anyone else. I've gotten beyond to the point. Let it bother me anymore with its greedy madness. Parent. It's funny Mother kept in touch with you so long. When she's finished with anyone, she's finished. She's always been proud of that. And you know how she feels about the movement, like a revivalist preacher about religion. Anyone who loses faith in it is more than dead to her. He's a Judas who ought to be boiled in oil, yet she seemed to forgive you. Larry, sardonically. She didn't. Don't worry. She wrote to denounce me and try to bring the sinner to repentance and a belief in the one true faith again. Parrot. What made you leave the movement, Larry? Was it on account of Mother? Larry starts. Don't be a damned fool. What the hell put that in your head? Parrot. Why, nothing. Except I remember what a fright you had with her before you left. Larry, resentfully. Well, if you do, I don't. That was 11 years ago. You were only 7. If we did quarrel, it was because I'd told her I'd become convinced the movement was only a beautiful pipe dream. Parrot, with a strange smile. I don't remember it that way. Larry. Then you can blame your imagination and forget it. He changes the subject abruptly. You asked me why I quit the movement. I had a lot of good reasons. One was myself, and another was my comrades, and the last was the breed of swine called men in general. For myself, I was forced to admit at the end of 30 years' devotion to the cause that I was never made for it. I was born condemned to be one of those who has to see all sides of a question. When you're damned like the questions multiply for you until in the end it's all question and no answer. As history proves to be a worldly success at anything, especially revolution, you have to wear blinders like a horse and see only straight in front of you. You have to see, too, that this is all black and that is all white. As for my comrades and the great cause, I felt as Horace Walpole did about England, that he could love it if it weren't for the people in it. The ideal free society must be constructed from its men themselves, and you can't build a marble temple out of a mixture of mud and manure. When man's soul isn't a sow's ear, it will be time enough to dream of silk purses. He chuckles sardonically, then irritably as if suddenly provoked at himself for talking so much. Well, that's why I quit the movement, if it leaves you any wiser. At any rate, you see it had nothing to do with your mother. Parrot smiles almost mockingly. Oh, sure, I see. But I'll bet Mother has always thought it was on her account. You know her, Larry. To hear her go on sometimes, you'd think she was the movement. Larry stares at him, puzzled and repelled, sharply. That's a hell of a way for you to talk after what happened to her. Parrot, at once confused and guilty. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't sneering, Larry. Only kidding. I've said the same thing to her lots of times to kid her. But you're right. I know I shouldn't now. I keep forgetting she's in jail. It doesn't seem real. I can't believe it about her. She's always been so free. But I don't want to think of it. Larry is moved to a puzzled pity in spite of himself. Parrot changes the subject. What have you been doing all the years since you left the coast, Larry? Larry, sardonically. Nothing I could help doing. If I don't believe in the movement, I don't believe in anything else either, especially not the state. I've refused to become a useful member of its society. I've been a philosophical drunken bum and proud of it. Abruptly, his tone sharpens with resentful warning. Listen to me. I hope you've deduced that I've my own reason for answering the impertinent questions of a stranger, for that's all you are to me. I have a strong hunch you've come here expecting something of me. I'm warning you at the start, so there will be no misunderstanding that I have nothing left to give, and I want to be left alone. And I'll thank you to keep your life to yourself. I feel you're looking for some answer to something. I have no answer to give anyone, not even myself. Unless you can call what Heine wrote in his poem to morphine an answer. He quotes a translation of the closing couplet sardonically. Lo, sleep is good, better is death. In sooth, the best of all were never to be born. Parrot shrinks a bit frightenedly. That's the hell of an answer. Then, with a forced grin of bravado, still, you never know when it might come in handy. He looks away. Larry stares at him puzzledly, interested in spite of himself and at the same time vaguely uneasy. Larry, forcing a casual tone. I don't suppose you've had much chance to hear news of your mother since she's been in jail. Parrot. No. No chance. He hesitates, then blurts out. Anyway, I don't think she wants to hear from me. We had a fight just before that business happened. She bawled me out because I was going around with tarts. That got my goat, coming from her. I told her, you've always acted the free woman. You've never let anything stop you from... He checks himself. Goes on hurriedly. That made her sore. She said she wouldn't give a damn what I did, except she begun to suspect I was too interested in outside things and losing interest in the movement. Larry stares at him. And were you? Parrot hesitates, then with intensity. Sure I was. I'm no damned fool. I couldn't go on believing forever that gang was going to change the world by shooting off their load traps on soapboxes and sneaking around blowing up a lousy building or a bridge. I got wise it was all a crazy pipe dream. Appealingly. The same as you did, Larry. That's why I came to you. I knew you'd understand. What finished me was this last business of something selling out. How can you believe anything after a thing like that happens? It knocks you cold. You don't know what the hell is what. You're through. Appealingly. You know how I feel, don't you, Larry? Larry stares at him, moved by sympathy and pity in spite of himself, disturbed and resentful at being disturbed, and puzzled by something he feels about Parrot that isn't right. But before he can reply, Hugo suddenly raises his head from his arms in a half-awake alcoholic daze and speaks. Hugo quotes aloud to himself in a guttural declamatory style, The days grow hot, O Babylon. 'Tis cool beneath thy willow trees. Parrot turns startledly as Hugo peers muzzily without recognition at him. Hugo exclaims automatically in his tone of denunciation, "God-damned stool pigeon!" Parrot shrinks away, stammers. What? Who do you mean? Then furiously, You lousy bum, you can't call me that. He draws back his fist. Hugo ignores this, recognizing him now, bursts into his childish teasing giggle. Hello, little Don, little monkey face. I did not recognize you. You have grown, big boy. How is your mother? Where you come from? He breaks into his wheedling, bullying tone. Don't be a fool. Loan me $1. Buy me a drink. As if this exhausted him, he abruptly forgets it and plumps his head down on his arms again and is asleep. Parrot, with eager relief. Sure, I'll buy you a drink, Hugo. I'm broke, but I can afford one for you. I'm sorry I got sore. I ought to have remembered when you're soused you call everyone a stool pigeon. But it's no damned joke right at this time. He turns to Larry, who is regarding him now fixedly with an uneasy expression, as if he suddenly were afraid of his own thoughts, forcing a smile. Gee, he's passed out again. He stiffens defensively. What are you giving me the hard look for? Oh, I know. You thought I was going to hit him. What do you think I am? I've always had a lot of respect for Hugo. I've always stood up for him when people in the movement panned him for being an old drunken has-been. He had the guts to serve 10 years in the can in his own country and get his eyes ruined in solitary. I'd like to see some of them here stick that. Well, they'll get a chance now to show hastily. I don't mean... Well, let's forget that. Tell me some more about this dump. Who are all these tanks? Who's that guy trying to catch pneumonia? He indicates Lewis. Larry stares at him almost frightenedly, then looks away and grasps eagerly this chance to change the subject. He begins to describe the sleepers with sardonic relish, but at the same time showing his affection for them. That's Captain Lewis, a one-time hero of the British Army. He strips to display the scar on his back he got from the native spear whenever he's completely plastered. The bewhiskered bloke opposite him is General Wetjohn, who led a commando in the war. The two of them met when they came here to work in the Boer War spectacle at the St. Louis Fair, and they've been bosom pals ever since. They dreamed the hours away in happy dispute over the brave days in South Africa when they tried to murder each other. The little guy between them was in it too, as correspondent for some English paper. His nickname here is Jimmy Tomorrow. He's the leader of our Tomorrow movement. Parrot. What do they do for a living? Larry. As little as possible. Once in a while, one of them makes a successful touch somewhere, and some of them get a few dollars a month from connections at home who pay it on condition they never come back. For the rest, they live on free lunch and their old friend, Harry Hope, who doesn't give a damn what anyone does or doesn't do as long as he likes you. Parrot. It must be a tough life. Larry. It's not. Don't waste your pity. They wouldn't thank you for it. They manage to get drunk by hook or crook and keep their pipe dreams, and that's all they ask of life. I've never known more contented men. It isn't often that men attain the true goal of their heart. The same applies to Harry himself and his two cronies at the far table. He's so satisfied with life, he's never set foot out of this place since his wife died 20 years ago. He has no need of the outside world at all. This place has a fine trade from the market people across the street and the waterfront workers. So in spite of Harry's thirst and his generous heart, he comes out even. He never worries in hard times because there's always old friends from the days when he was a jitney Tammany politician and a friendly brewery to tide him over. Don't ask me what his two pals work at, because they don't. Except at being his lifetime guests. The one facing this way is his brother-in-law, Ed Mosher, who once worked for a circus in the ticket wagon. Pat McGloin, the other one, was a police lieutenant back in the flush times of graft when everything went. But he got too greedy, and when the usual reform investigation came, he was caught red-handed and thrown off the force. He nods at Joe. Joe here has a yesterday in the same flush period. He ran a colored gambling house then and was a hell of a sport, so they say. Well, that's our whole family's circle of inmates, except the two barkeeps and their girls. 3 ladies of the pavement that room on the 3rd floor. Parrot, bitterly. To hell with them. I never want to see a whore again. As Larry flashes him a puzzled glance, he adds confusedly, I mean, they always get you in Dutch. While he is speaking, Willie Oban has opened his eyes. He leans toward them, drunk now from the effect of the huge drink he took, and speaks with a mocking suavity. Willie, why omit me from your who's who in this dipsomania, Larry? An unpardonable slight, especially as I am the only inmate of royal blood, to Parrot, ramblingly. Educated at Harvard, too. You must have noticed the atmosphere of culture here. My humble contribution. Yes, generous stranger, I trust you're generous. I was born in the purple, the sun, but unfortunately not the heir of the late world-famous Bill Oban, king of the bucket shops. A revolution deposed him, conducted by the district attorney. He was sent into exile. In fact, not to mince matters, they locked him in the can and threw away the key. Alas, his was an adventurous spirit that pined in confinement, and so he died. Forgive these reminiscences. Undoubtedly, all this is well known to you. Everyone in the world knows. Parrot, uncomfortably. Tough luck. No, I never heard of him. Willie blinks at him incredulously. Never heard? I thought everyone in the world. Why, even at Harvard, I discovered my father was well known by reputation. Although that was some time before the district attorney gave him so much unwelcome publicity. Yes, even as a freshman, I was notorious. I was accepted socially with all the warm cordiality that Henry Wadsworth Longfellow would have shown a drunken negress dancing the can-can at high noon on Brattle Street. Harvard was my father's idea. He was an ambitious man, dictatorial too, always knowing what was best for me. But I did make myself a brilliant student. A dirty trick on my classmates, inspired by revenge, I fear. He quotes, Dear college days, with pleasure rife, the grandest, gladdest days of my life. But of course, that is a Yale hymn, and they're given to rah-rah exaggeration at New Haven. I was a brilliant student at law school, too. My father wanted a lawyer in the family. He was a calculating man. A thorough knowledge of the law close at hand in the house to help him find fresh ways to evade it. But I discovered the loophole of whiskey and escaped his jurisdiction. Abruptly to Parrot, Speaking of whiskey, sir, reminds me, and I hope reminds you, that when meeting a prince, the customary salutation is, What do you have? Parrot, with defensive resentment. Nix! All you guys seem to think I'm made of dough. Where would I get the coin to blow everyone? Willie, skeptically. Broke? You haven't the thirsty look of the impecunious. I judge you to be a plutocrat, your pockets stuffed with ill-gotten gains. $2 or $3 at least. And don't think we will question how you got it. As Vespasian remarked, the smell of all whiskey is sweet. Parrot, what do you mean how I got it? To Larry, forcing a laugh. It's a laugh calling me a plutocrat, isn't it, Larry? When I've been in the movement all my life. Larry gives him an uneasy, suspicious glance, then looks away, as if avoiding something he does not wish to see. Willie, disgustedly. Oh, one of those, eh? I believe you now, all right. Go away and blow yourself up, that's a good lad. Hugo is the only licensed preacher of that gospel here. A dangerous terrorist, Hugo. He would as soon blow the collar off a schooner of beer as look at you. To Larry. Let us ignore this useless youth, Larry. Let us join in prayer that Hickey, the great salesman, will soon arrive bringing the blessed bourgeois Longreen. With that Hickey or death would come. Meanwhile, I will sing a song. A beautiful old New England folk ballad which I picked up at Harvard amid the debris of education. He sings in a boisterous baritone, rapping on the table with his knuckles at the indicated spots in the song. Jack, oh Jack, was a sailor lad, and he came to a tavern for gin. He rapped and he rapped with a rap, 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 but never a soul seemed in. The drunks at the table stir. Rocky gets up from his chair in the bar and starts back for the entrance to the back room. Hope cocks one irritable eye over his specs. Opens both of his and grins. Willie interposes some drunken whimsical exposition to Larry. The origin of this beautiful ditty is veiled in mystery, Larry. There was a legend broided about in Cambridge laboratories that Waldo Emerson composed it during his uninformative period as a minister, while he was trying to write a sermon. But my own opinion is it goes back much further, and Jonathan Edwards was the author of both words and music. He sings. He rapped and tapped, enough to wake the dead, till he heard a damsel, rap, 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 on a window right over his head. The drunks are blinking their eyes now, grumbling and cursing. Rocky appears from the bar at rear right, yawning. Hope, with fuming irritation. Rocky! But jeez, can't you keep that crazy bastard quiet? Rocky starts for Willie. And now the influence of a good woman enters our mariner's life. Well, perhaps good isn't the word, but very, very kind, he sings. Oh, come up, she cried, my sailor lad, and you and I'll agree, and I'll show you the prettiest rap, rap, rap that you ever did see. He speaks. You see, Larry, the lewd Puritan touch, obviously, and it grows more marked as we go on, he sings. Oh, he put his arm around her waist. He gazed in her bright blue eyes, and then But here Rocky shakes him roughly by the shoulder. Rocky. Piano. What do you think this dump is, a dump? Hope. Give him the bum's rush upstairs. Lock him in his room. Rocky. Yanks Willie by the arm. Come on, bum. Willie dissolves in pitiable terror. No, please, Rocky. I'll go crazy up in that room alone. It's haunted. He calls to Hope. Please, Harry, let me stay here. I'll be quiet. Hope immediately relents indignantly. What the hell are you doing to him, Rocky? I didn't tell you to beat up. I didn't tell you to beat up the poor guy. Leave him alone, as long as he's quiet. Rocky lets go of Willie disgustedly and goes back to his chair in the bar. Willie, huskily. Thanks, Harry. You're a good scout. He closes his eyes and sinks back in his chair exhaustedly, twitching and quivering again. Hope, addressing McGloin and Mosher, who are sleepily awake, accusingly. Always the way. Can't trust nobody. Leave it to that Dago to keep order, and it's like Bedlam in the cat house, singing and everything. And you two big barflies are a hell of a help to me, ain't you? Eat and sleep and get drunk. All you're good for, bejeez. Well, you can take that, I'll have the same look off your maps. There ain't gonna be no more drinks in the house till hell freezes over. Neither of the two is impressed either by his insults or his threats. They grin hangover grins of tolerant affection at him and wink at each other. Harry fumes. Yeah, grin. Wink, bejeez. Fine pair of sons of bitches to have glued on me for life. But he can't get a rise out of them, and he subsides into a fuming mumble. Meanwhile, at the middle table, Captain Lewis and General Wetjoen are as wide awake as heavy hangovers permit. Jimmy tomorrow nods, his eyes blinking. Lewis is gazing across the table at Joe Mott, who is still chuckling to himself over Willie's song. The expression on Lewis's face is that of one who can't believe his eyes. Lewis, aloud to himself with muzzy wonder. Good God! Have I been drinking at the same table with a bloody kefir? Joe, grinning. Hello, Captain. You coming up for air? K, who's he? Wet Joan, blurrily. K, that's an N, Joe. Joe stiffens and his eyes narrow. Wet Joan goes on with heavy jocosity. That's a joke on him, Joe. He don't know you. He's still plain drunk, the bloody, limey gentleman. Great mistake I missed him at the paddle of Motter River. Vit mine rifle I shoot damn fool limey officers by the dozen, but him I miss. The pity of it. He chuckles and slaps Lewis on his bare shoulder. Hey, wake up, Cecil, you plody fool. Don't you know your old friend Joe? He's no damned K. He's white, Joe is. Lewis, light dawning contritely. My profound apologies, Joseph, old chum. Eyesight a trifle blurry, I'm afraid. Whitest colored man I ever knew. Proud to call you my friend. No hard feelings, what? He holds out his hand. Joe at once grins good-naturedly and shakes his hand. No, Captain, I know it's a mistake. Use regular if you is a limey. Then his face hardening. But I don't stand for N from nobody. Never did. In the old days, people calls me N wakes up in the hospital. I was the leader of the dirty half-dozen gang. All 6 of us colored boys. We was tough and I was the toughest. Wet Joan, inspired to boastful reminiscence. Me in old days in Transvaal, I was so tough and strong I grab axle of ox wagon mit full load and lift like a feather. Lewis smiling amiably. As for you, my balmy bower, that walks like a man, I say again it was a grave error in our foreign policy ever to set you free. Once we nabbed you and your commando with Cronier, we should have taken you to the London Zoo and incarcerated you in the baboon's cage, with a sign, spectators may distinguish the true baboon by his blue behind. Wet Joan grins. Cut. To think 10 better limey officers at least, I shoot clean in the middle of forehead at Spion Kupchi, and you I miss. I never forgive myself. Jimmy tomorrow blinks benignantly from one to the other with a gentle drunken smile. Jimmy, sentimentally. Now come, Cecil, Piet. We must forget the war. Bore and Brighton each fought fairly and played the game till the better man won, and then we shook hands. We are all brothers within the empire united beneath the flag on which the sun never sets. Tears come to his eyes. He quotes with great sentiment, if with slight application. Ship me somewhere east of Suez. Larry breaks in sardonically. Begod, you're there already, Jimmy. Worst is best here, and east is west, and tomorrow is yesterday. What more do you want? Jimmy, with bleary benevolence, shaking his head in mild rebuke. No, Larry, old friend, you can't deceive me. You pretend a bitter, cynic philosophy, but in your heart you are the kindest man among us. Larry, disconcerted irritably. The hell you say? Parrot leans toward him confidentially. What a bunch of cuckoos. As if reminded of something, with a pathetic attempt at a brisk, no more nonsense air. Tomorrow, yes. It's high time I straightened out and got down to business again. He brushes his sleeve fastidiously. I must have the suit cleaned and pressed. I can't look a tramp when I... Joe, who has been brooding, interrupts. Yes, sir. White folks always said I was white. In the days when I was flush, Joe Mott's the only colored man days allows in the white gambling houses. You're all right, Joe. You're white, they says. He chuckles. Wouldn't let me play craps, though. They know I could make them dice behave. Any other game and any limit you like, Joe, they says. Man, the money I lost. He chuckles. Then with an underlying defensiveness, look at the big chief in them days. He knew I was white. I'd save my dough so I could start my own gambling house. Folks in the know tells me they see the man at the top, and then you never know he has trouble. See the man at the top, then you never has trouble. You get Harry Hope, give you a letter to the chief, and Harry does, don't you, Harry? Hope, preoccupied with his own thoughts. Eh? Sure. Big Bill was a good friend of mine. I had plenty of friends, high up in them in those days. Still could have if I wanted to go out and see them. Sure, I give you a letter. I said I was white, but the hell of it. Joe, the Captain Lewis, who has relapsed into a sleepy daze and is listening to him with an absurd, strained attention without comprehending a word. There. You see, Captain? I went to see the chief, shaking in my boots, and there he is, sitting behind a big desk, looking as big as a freight train. He don't look up. He keeps me waiting and waiting, and after about an hour, seems like to me, he says slow and quiet, like there wasn't no harm in him. You want to open a gambling joint, does ya, Joe? But he don't give me no time to answer. He jumps up looking as big as 2 freight trains, and he pounds his fist like a ham on the desk and shouts, "You black son of a bitch. Harry says you're white, and you better be white, or there's a little iron room up the river waiting for you." Then he sits down and says quiet again, "All right, you can open. Get the hell out of here." So I opens, and he finds out I's white, sure enough, because I run wide open for years and pays me sugar on the dot, and the cops and I is friends. He chuckles with pride. Them old days. Many's the night I come in here. This was a first-class hangout for sports in them days. Good whiskey, 15 cents, 2 for 2 bits. I throws down a $50 bill like it was trash paper and says, "Drink it up, boys. I don't want no change." Ain't that right, Harry? Hope, caustically. Yes. And bejeez, if ever I seen you throw 50 cents on the bar now, I'd know I had a delirium tremens. You've told that story 10 million times, and if I have to hear it again, that'll give me the DTs anyway. Joe, chuckling. Getting drunk every day for 20 years ain't give you the Brooklyn boys. You needn't be scared of me. Lewis suddenly turns and beams on Hope. Thank you, Harry, old chum. I will have a drink now you mention it, seeing it's so near your birthday. The others laugh. Hope puts his hand to his ear angrily. What's that? I can't hear you. Lewis, sadly. No, I fancied you wouldn't. Hope. I don't have to hear, but geez. Booze is the only thing you ever talked about. Lewis, sadly. True. Yet there was a time when my conversation was more comprehensive. Because as I became burdened with years, it seemed rather pointless to discuss my other subject. Hope. You can't joke with me. How much room rent do you owe me? Tell me that. Lewis. Sorry. Adding has always baffled me. Subtraction is my forte. Hope. Snarling. Think you're funny. Captain Bidgie, showing off your wounds. Put on your clothes, for Christ's sake. This ain't no Turkish bath. Lousy, limey army. Took 'em years to lick a gang of Dutch hayseeds. Wheat Joan. That's right, Harry. Give 'em hell. Hope. No lip out of you neither, you Dutch spinach. General hell. Salvation Army, that's what you ought to been, General in. Bragging what a shot you were, and bejeez, you missed him. And he missed you, that's just as bad. Now the 2 of you bum on me. Threateningly. But you broke the camel's back this time, bejeez. You pay up tomorrow or out you go. Lunas earnestly. My dear fellow, I give you my word of honor as an officer and a gentleman. You shall be paid tomorrow. Wet Joan. It's fair, Harry. Tomorrow without fail. McGloin, a twinkle in his eye. There you are, Harry. Sure. What could be fairer? Mosher with a wink at McGloin. Yes, you can't ask more than that, Harry. A promise is a promise, as I've often discovered. Hope turns on them. I mean the both of you, too. That old grafting flatfoot and a circus bunco steer. Fine company for me, bejeez. Couple of con men living in my flat since Christ knows when. Getting fat as hogs, too, and you ain't even got the decency to get me upstairs where I got a good bed. Let me sleep on a chair like a bum. Kept me down here waiting for Hickey to show up, hoping I'd blow you to more drinks. McGloin. Ed and I did our damnedest to get you up, didn't we, Ed? McGloin. Ed and I did our damnedest to get you up, didn't we, Ed? Mosher. We did. But you said you couldn't bear the flat because it was one of those nights when memory brought poor old Bessie back to you. Hope. His face instantly becoming long and sad and sentimental, mournfully. Yes, that's right, boys. I remember now. I could almost see her in every room just as she used to be, and it's 20 years since she... His throat and eyes fill up. A suitable sentimental hush falls on the room. Larry, in a sardonic whisper to Parrot, isn't a pipe dream of yesterday a touching thing? By all accounts, Bessie nagged the hell out of him. Jimmy, who has been dreaming, a look of prim resolution on his face, speaks aloud to himself. No more of this sitting around and loafing. Time I took hold of myself. I must have my shoes soled and heeled and shined first thing tomorrow morning. A general spruce-up. I want to have a well-groomed appearance when I... His voice fades out as he stares in front of him. No one pays any attention to him except Larry and Parrot. Larry, as before in a sardonic aside to Parrot, the tomorrow movement is a sad and beautiful thing too. McGloin, with a huge sentimental sigh and a calculating look at Hope. Poor old Bessie. You don't find her like in these days. A sweeter woman never drew breath. Mosher, in a similar calculating mood. Good old Bess. A man couldn't want a better sister than she was to me. Hope, mournfully. 20 years. And I've never set foot out of this house since the day I buried her. Didn't have the heart. Once she'd gone, I didn't give a damn for anything. I lost all my ambition. Without her, nothing seemed worth the trouble. You remember Ed? You too, Mac. The boys was going to nominate me for alderman. It was all fixed. Bessie wanted it, and she was so proud. But when she was taken, I told them, no, boys, I can't do it. I simply haven't the heart. I'm through. I would have won the election easy, too. He says this a bit defiantly. Oh, I know there was jealous wise guys said the boys was giving me the nomination because they knew they couldn't win that year in this ward. But that's a damned lie. I knew every man, woman, and child in the ward, almost. Bessie made me make friends with everyone, helped me remember all their names. I'd have elected easy. McGloin. You would, Harry. It was a sure thing. Mosher. A dead cinch, Harry. Everyone knows that. Hope. Sure they do. But after Bessie died, I didn't have the heart. Still, I know while she'd appreciate my grief, she wouldn't want it to keep me cooped up in here all my life. So I've made up my mind I'll go out soon. Take a walk around the ward. See all the friends I used to know. Get together with the boys and maybe tell 'em I'll let 'em deal me a hand in their game again. Yes, bejeez, I'll do it. My birthday tomorrow. That'd be the right time to turn over a new leaf. 60. That ain't too old. McGloin flatteringly. It's the prime of life, Harry. Mosher. Wonderful thing about you, Harry. You keep young as you ever was. Jimmy, dreaming aloud again. Get my things from the laundry. They must still have them. Clean collar and shirt. If I watch the ones I've got on anymore, they'll fall apart. Socks, too. I want to make a good appearance. I met Dick Trumbull on the street a year or two ago. He said, Jimmy, the publicity department's never been the same. Sorry. Well, if I don't ruin the rhythm. Okay. He said, Jimmy, the publicity department's never been the same since you got resigned. It's dead as hell, I said. I know. I've heard rumors the management were at their wits' end, and I would be only too glad to have me run it for them again. I think all I'd have to do would be go and see them, and they'd offer me the position. Don't you think so, Dick? He said, Sure they would, Jimmy. Only take my advice and wait a while until business conditions are better. Then you can strike them for a bigger salary than you got before, do you see? I said, Yes, I do see, Dick. And many thanks for the tip. Well, conditions must be better by this time. All I have to do is get fixed up with a decent front tomorrow, and it's as good as done. Hope. Glances at Jimmy with a condescending, affectionate pity in a hushed voice. Poor Jimmy's off his pipe dream again. Jeez, he takes the cake. This is too much for Larry. He cannot restrain a sardonic guffaw, but no one pays any attention to him. Lewis opens his eyes, which are drowsing again, dreamily to Wetjohn. I'm sorry we had to postpone our trip again this April, Piet. I hoped the blasted old estate would be settled up by then. The damned lawyers can't hold up the settlement much longer. We'll make it next year, even if we have to work and earn our passage money, eh? You'll stay with me at the old place as long as you like. Then you can take the Union Castle from Southampton to Cape Town. Sentimentally, with real yearning. England in April. I want you to see that, Piet. The old veldt has its points, I'll admit, but it isn't home, especially in April. Wetjohn blinks drowsily at him dreamily. Ja, Cecil. I know how beautiful it must be, from all you tell me many times. I will enjoy it, but I shall enjoy more when I am home, too. The Welt, yeah! You could put England on it, and it would look like a farmer's small garden. By God. There is space to be free, the air like wine is, you don't need booze to be drunk. My relations will be so surprised be. They will not know me it is so many years. They will be so glad if I have come home at last. Joe, dreamily. I'll make my stake and get my new gambling house open before you boys leave. You gotta come to the opening. I'll treat you white. If you're broke, I'll stake you to buck any game you chooses. If you wins, that's velvet for you. If you loses, it don't count. Can't treat you no whiter than that, can I? Hope, again with condescending pity. But geez, Jimmy started them off smoking the same op. But the three are finished, their eyes closed again in sleep or a drowse. Larry, aloud to himself in his comically tense, crazy whisper. Be God, this bug house will drive me stark raving loony yet. Hope turns on him with fuming suspicion. What? What'd you say? Larry, placatingly. Nothing, Harry. I had a crazy thought in my head. Hope, irascibly. Crazy is right, yeah, the old wise guy. Wise hell. A damned fool, anarchist, I won't worker. I'm sick of you, and Hugo too. But geez, you'll pay up tomorrow, or I'll start a Harry Hope revolution. I'll tie a dispossessed bomb to your tails that'll blow you out in the street. But geez, I'll make your movement move. The witticism delights him, and he bursts into a shrill cackle. At once McGloin and Mosher guffaw enthusiastically. Mosher, flatteringly. Harry, you sure say the funniest things. He reaches on the table as if he expected a glass to be there, then starts with well-acted surprise. Hell, where's my drink? That Rocky is too damned fast cleaning tables. Why, I'd only taken a sip of it. Hope, his smiling face congealing. No, you don't, acidly. Any time you only take one sip of a drink, you'll have lockjaw and paralysis. Think you can kid me with those old circus con games? Me. That's known you since you was knee-high, and bejeez, you was a crook even then. McGloin, grinning. It's not like you to be so hard-hearted, Harry. Sure, it's hot, parching work. Laughing at your jokes so early in the morning on an empty stomach. Hope. Yeah, you Mac. Another crook. Who asked you to laugh? We was talking about poor old Bessie, and you and her no good brother start to laugh. A hell of a thing. Talking mush about her, too. Good old Bess. But gee, she'd never forgive me if she knew I had you two bums living at her flat, throwing ashes and cigar butts on her carpet. You know her opinion of you, Mac. That Pat McGloin is the biggest drunken grafter that ever disgraced the police force, she used to say to me. I hope they send him to Sing Sing for life. McGloin, unperturbed. She didn't mean it. She was angry at me because you used to get me drunk. But Bess had a heart of gold underneath her sharpness. She knew I was innocent of all the charges. Willie jumps to his feet drunkenly and points a finger at McGloin, imitating the manner of a cross-examiner coldly. One moment, please, Lieutenant McGloin. Are you aware you are under oath? Do you realize what the penalty for perjury is? Purringly. Come on now, Lieutenant. Isn't it a fact that you're guilty as hell? No. Don't say, how about your old man? I am asking the questions. The fact that he was an old crooked bucket shop bastard has no bearing on your case. With a change to maudlin joviality, gentlemen of the jury, court will now recess while the DA sings out a little ditty he learned at Harvard. It was composed in a wanton moment by the dean of the Divinity School on a moonlight night in July 1776, while sobering up in a Turkish bath. He sings. Oh, come up, she cried, my sailor lad, and you and I'll agree, and I'll show you the prettiest rep on the table that you ever did see. Suddenly he catches Hope's eyes fixed on him condemningly, and sees Rocky appearing from the bar. He collapses back on his chair, pleading miserably. Please, Harry, I'll be quiet. Don't make Rocky bounce me upstairs. I'll go crazy alone, to McLean. I apologize, Mac. Don't get sore. I was only kidding you. Rocky, at a relenting glance from Hope, returns to the bar. McLean, good-naturedly. Sure. Kid all you like, Willie. I'm hardened to it. He pauses, seriously. But I'm telling you, someday before long, I'm going to make them reopen my case. Everyone knows there was no real evidence against me, and I took the fall for the ones higher up. I'll be found innocent this time and reinstated. Wistfully. I'd like to have my old job on the force back. The boys tell me there's fine pickings these days, and I'm not getting rich here, sitting with a parched throat waiting for Harry Hope to buy a drink. He glances reproachfully at Hope. Willie, of course you'll be reinstated, Mac. All you need is a brilliant young attorney to handle your case. I'll be straightened out and on the wagon in a day or two. I've never practiced, but I was once one of the most brilliant students in law school, and your case is just the opportunity I need to start. Darkly. Don't worry about my not forcing the DA to reopen your case. I went through my father's papers before the cops destroyed them, and I remember a lot of people. Even if I can't prove, coaxingly, you will let me take your case, won't you, Mac? McGloin, soothingly. Sure I will, and it'll make your reputation, Willie. Mosher winks at Hope, shaking his head, and Hope answers with identical pantomime, as though to say, Poor dopes, they're off again. Larry, aloud to himself more than to parrot, with irritable wonder. Ah, be damned. Haven't I heard their visions 1,000 times? Why should they get under my skin now? I've got the blues, I guess. I wish to hell Hickey'd turn up. Mosher, calculating solicitous, whispering to Hope. Poor Willie needs a drink bad, Harry. And I think if we all joined him, it'd make him feel he was among friends and cheer him up. Hope. More circus con tricks, scathingly. You talking of your dear sister? Bessie had you sized up. She used to tell me, I don't know what you can see in that worthless, drunken, petty larceny brother of mine. If I had my way, she'd say, he'd get booted out in the gutter on his fat behind. Sometimes she didn't say behind either. Mosher grins genially. Yes, dear old Bess had a quick temper, but there was no real harm in her. He chuckles reminiscently. Remember the time she sent me down to the bar to change a $10 bill for her? Hope has to grin to himself. But geez, do I? She could have bit a piece out of a stove lid after she found it out. He cackles appreciatively. Mosher, I was sure surprised when she gave me the 10 spot. Bess usually had better sense, but she was in a hurry to go to church. I didn't really mean to do it, but you know how habit gets you. Besides, I still worked then, and the circus season was going to begin soon, and I needed a little practice to keep my hand in. Or, you never can tell. The first rube that came to my wagon for a ticket might have left with the right change, and I'd be disgraced. He chuckles. I said, I'm sorry, Bess, but I had to take it all in dimes. Here, hold out your hands and I'll count it out for you so you won't kick me afterwards. I shortchanged you. He begins a count which grows more rapid as he goes on. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $1. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. You're counting with me, Bess, aren't you? 80, 90, $2. 10, 20, those are pretty shoes you got on, Bess. 40, 50, 70, 60, and 70, 80, 90, $3. 10, 20, 30. What's on the church tonight, Bess? 50, 60, 70, 90, $4. 10, 20, 30, 50, 70. That's a swell new hat, Bess. Looks very becoming. $6. He chuckles. And so on. I'm bum at it now for lack of practice, but in those days I could have shortchanged the keeper of the mint. Hope, grinning. Stung her for $2.50, wasn't it, Ed? Mosher. Yes. A fine percentage, if I do say so, when you're dealing to somebody who's sober and can count. I'm sorry to say she discovered my mistakes in arithmetic just after I beat it around the corner. She counted it over herself. Bess somehow never had the confidence in me a sister should. He sighs tenderly. Dear old Bess. Hope, indignant now. You're a fine guy bragging how you shortchanged your own sister. But geez, if there was a war and you was in it, they'd have to padlock the pockets out of the dead. Mosher, I bet heard of this. That's going pretty strong, Harry. I always gave a sucker some chance. There wouldn't be no fun robbing the dead. He becomes reminiscently melancholy. Gosh, thinking of the old ticket wagon brings those days back. The greatest life on earth with the greatest show on earth. The grandest crowd of regular guys ever gathered under one tent. I'd sure like to shake their hands again. Hope acidly. They'd have guns in theirs. They'd shoot you on sight. You've touched every damn one of them. But geez, you've even borrowed fish from the trained seals and peanuts from every elephant that remembered you. This fancy tickles him, and he gives a cackling laugh. Mosher, overlooking this in dreamland. You know, Harry, I've made up my mind. I'll see the boss in a couple of days and ask for my old job. I can get back my magic touch with the change easy, and I can throw him a line of bull that'll kid him. I won't be so unreasonable about sharing the profits next time. With insinuating complaint. There's no percentage in hanging around this dive, taking care of you and shooting away your snakes, when I don't even get an eye-opener for my trouble. Hope. Implacably. No. Mosher sighs and gives up and closes his eyes. The others, except Larry and Parrot, are all dozing again now. Hope goes on grumbling. Go to hell, or the circus for all I care. Good riddance, bejeez, I'm sick of you. Then worriedly. Say, Ed, what the hell you think's happened to Hickey? I hope he'll turn up. Always got a million funny stories. You and the other bums have begun to give me the graveyard fantods. I'd like a good laugh with old Hickey. He chuckles at a memory. Remember that gag he always pulls about his wife and the Iceman? He'd make a cat laugh. Rocky appears from the bar. He comes front, behind Mosher's chair, and begins pushing the black curtain along the rod to the rear wall. Rocky. Opening time, boss. He presses a button at rear, which switches off the lights. The back room becomes drabber and dingier than ever in the gray daylight that comes from the street windows, off-right in what light can penetrate the grime of the two backyard windows at left. Rocky turns back to Hope grumpily. Why don't you go to bed, boss? Hickey'd never turn up this time of the morning. Hope starts and listens. Someone's coming now. Rocky listens. Aw, that's only my two pigs. It's about time they showed. He goes back toward the door at the left of the bar. Hope, sourly disappointed. You keep them dumb broads quiet. I don't want to go to bed. I'm going to catch a couple of more winks here, and I don't want no damn fool laughing and screeching. He settles himself in his chair, grumbling. Never thought I'd see the day when Harry Hopes would have tarts rooming in it. What did Bessie think? But I don't let them use my rooms for business, and they're good kids. Good as anyone else. They gotta make a living. Pay their rent too, which is more than I can save her. He cocks an eye over his specs at Mosher and grins with satisfaction. But geez, Ed, I'll bet Bessie is doing somersaults in her grave. He chuckles. But Mosher's eyes are closed. his head nodding, and he doesn't reply. So Hope closes his eyes. Rocky has opened the barroom door at rear and is standing in the hall beyond it, facing right. A girl's laugh is heard. Rocky, warningly, "Nix piano." He comes in, beckoning them to follow. He goes behind the bar and gets a whiskey bottle and glasses and chairs. Margie and Pearl follow him, casting a glance around. Everyone except Larry and Parrot is asleep or dozing. Even Parrot has his eyes closed. The two girls, neither much over 20, are typical dollar streetwalkers, dressed in the usual tawdry getup. Pearl is obviously Italian with black hair and eyes. Margie has brown hair and hazel eyes, a slum New Yorker of mixed blood. Both are plump and have a certain prettiness that shows even through their blobby makeup. Each retains a vestige of youthful freshness, although the game is beginning to get them and give them hard-worn expressions. Both are sentimental, feather-brained, giggly, lazy, good-natured, and reasonably contented with life. Their attitude toward Rocky is much that of two maternal, affectionate sisters toward a bullying brother whom they like to tease and spoil. His attitude toward them is that of the owner of two performing pets he has trained to do a profitable act under his management. He feels a proud proprietor's affection for them and is tolerantly lax in his discipline. Marjorie, glancing around. "Gee, well, it's the morgue with all the stiffs on deck." She catches Larry's eye and smiles affectionately. "Hello, old wise guy. Ain't you dead yet?" Larry, grinning. "Not yet, Margie, but I'm waiting impatiently for the end." Parrot opens his eyes to look at the two girls, but as soon as they glance at him, he closes them again and turns his head away. Margie, as she and Pearl come to the table at right front, followed by Rocky. "Who's the new guy? Friend of yours, Larry?" Automatically, she smiles seductively at Parrot and addresses him in a professional chant. "Want to have a good time, kid?" Pearl, he's passed out. Hell with him." Hope cocks an eye over his specs at them, with drowsy irritation. "You dumb broads, cut the loud talk." He shuts his eye again. Rocky, admonishing them good-naturedly. "Sit down before I knock you down." Marjorie and Pearl sit at left and rear of table, Rocky at right of it. The girl pour drinks. Rocky begins in a brisk, business-like manner, but in a lowered voice with an eye on Hope. "Well, how'd you tramps do?" Margie. "Pretty girl, didn't we, Pearl. "Sure, we nailed a couple of all-night guys." Margie. "On 6th Avenue. Boobs from the sticks." Pearl. "Stinko the bot of 'em." Margie. "We thought we was in luck. We steered him to a real hotel. We figured they was too stinko to bother us much, and we could cop a good sleep in beds that ain't got cobblestones in the mattress like the ones in this dump." Pearl. "But we was out of luck. They didn't bother us much that way, but they wouldn't go to sleep either, see? Jeez, I never heard of such gabby guys." Margie. "They got onto politics, drinking out of the bottle. They forgot we was around. The Bull Moosiers is the only regular guys, one guy says, and the other guy says, 'You're a goddamned liar, and I'm a Republican.' Then they'd laugh." Pearl. "Then they'd get mad and make a bluff they was going to scrap, and then they'd make up and cry and sing school days. Jeez. Imagine trying to sleep with that on the phonograph." Margie. "Maybe you'd think we was glad we was Maybe you'd think we wasn't glad when the house dick come up and told us all to get dressed and take the air." Pearl. "We told the guys we wait for them round the corner." Margie. "So here we are." Rocky, sententiously. "Yeah, I see ya, but I don't see no dough yet." Pearl, with a wink at Margie, teasingly. "Right on the job, ain't he, Margie?" Margie. "Yeah, our little businessman, that's him." Rocky. "Come on, dig." They both pull up their skirts to get the money from their stockings. Rocky watches this move carefully. Pearl, Amused. Pipe him keeping cases, Margie. Margie, amused. Scared we're holding out on him. Pearl. Way he grabs, you'd think it was him done the work. She holds out a little roll of bills to Rocky. Here you are, grafter. Margie, holding hers out. We hope it chokes you. Rocky counts the money quickly and shoves it in his pocket. Rocky genially. You dumb baby dolls give me a pain. What would you do with the money if I wasn't around? Give it all to some pimp. Pearl, teasingly. Geez, what's the difference? Hastily. Oh, I don't mean that, Rocky. Rocky, his eyes growing hard, slowly. A lot of difference. Get me? Pearl, don't get sore. Geez, you can't take a little kiddin'? Margie. Sure, Rocky. Poyle was only kiddin', soothingly. We know you got a regular job. That's why we like you, see? You don't live off of us. You're a bartender. Rocky, genially again. Sure, I'm a bartender. Everyone knows that. And I treat you goyles right, don't I? Geez, I'm wise you hold out on me, but I know it ain't much, so what the hell? I let you get away with it. I think you're a good couple of kids. You're aces with me, see? Pearl. You're aces with us too, ain't he, Margie? Margie. Sure he's aces. Rocky beams complacently and takes the glasses back to the bar. Margie whispers. Yes, sap. Don't you know enough not to kid him on that? Serve you right if he beat you up. Pearl, admiringly. Geez, I'll bet he'd give you an awful beating too once he started. Jenny's got an awful tempers. Margie. Anyway, we wouldn't keep no pimp like we was regular old whores. We ain't that bad. Pearl. No. We're tarts, but that's all. Rocky. Rinsing glasses behind the bar. Cora got back around 3 o'clock. She woke up Chuck and dragged him out of the hay to go to the chop suey joint. Disgustedly. Imagine him standing for that stuff. Margie, disgustedly. I'll bet they've been sitting around kidding themselves with that old pipe dream about getting married and settling down on a farm. Jeez, when Chuck's on the wagon, they never lay off that dope. They give you an earful every time you talk to him. Pearl. Yeah. Chuck with a silly grin on his ugly mouth, the big boob, and Cora giggling like she was in grammar school and some tough guide just told her babies wasn't bringing down the chimney by a Boyd. Margie. And her on the turf long before me and you was. And both of them arguing all the time, and Cora saying she's scared to marry him just because he'll go on to drinks. Because he'll go on to drunks again. Just as though any drunk could scare him, Cora. Pearl. And him swearing, the big liar, he'll never go on no more periodicals. And then her pretending, but it gives me a pain to talk about it. We ought to phone the booby hatch to send around a wagon for him. Rocky comes back to the table disgustedly. Yeah, all the pipe dreams in this dump. They got the nuttiest, and nothing stops them. They've been dreaming it for years every time on the wagon. I never could figure it. What would getting married get 'em? But the farm stuff is the sappiest part. When Bottom was dragged up in this ward, and they'd never been nearer a farm than Coney Island. Jeez, they'd think they'd gone deep and if they didn't hear it till rattle. They get DTs if they ever hold a cricket choip. I hoid crickets once on my cousin's place in Jersey. I couldn't sleep a wink. They give me the heebie-jeebies. With deeper disgust. Geez, can you picture a good barkeep like Chuck Diggins Spuds? And imagine a whore hustling the cows home. For Christ's sake, ain't that a sweet picture? Margie, rebukingly. You oughtn't to call Cora that, Rocky. She's a good kid. She may be a tart, but... Rocky, considerately. Sure, that's all I meant. A tart. Pearl, giggling. But he's right about the damn cows, Margie. Geez, I bet Cora don't know which end of the cow has the horns. I'm gonna ask her. There is the noise of a door opening in the hall and the sound of a man's and woman's arguing voices. Rocky. Here's your chance. That's them two nuts now. Cora and Chuck look in from the hallway and then come in. Cora is a thin peroxide blonde, a few years older than Pearl and Margie, dressed in similar style, her round face showing more of the wear and tear of her trade than theirs, but still with the traces of a doll-like prettiness. Chuck is a tough, thick-necked, barrel-chested Italian-American with a fat, amiable, swarthy face. He has on a straw hat with a vivid band, a loud suit, tie and shirt, and yellow shoes. His eyes are clear and he looks healthy and strong as an ox. Cora, gaily. Hello, bums. She looks around. Geez, the morgue on a rainy Sunday night. She waves to Larry affectionately. Hello, old wise guy. Ain't you croaked yet? Larry grins. Not yet, Cora. It's damned tiring, this waiting for the end. Cora. Aw, go on. You'll never die. You'll have to hire someone to croak you with an axe. Hope cocks one sleepy eye at her irritably. You dumb hookers, cut the loud noise. This ain't a cat house. Cora teasingly. My Harry, such language. Hope closes his eyes to himself with a gratified chuckle. But geez, I'll bet Bessie's turning over in her grave. Cora sits down between Margie and Pearl. Chuck takes an empty chair from Hope's table and puts it by hers and sits down. At Larry's table, Parrot is glaring resentfully toward the girls. Parrot. If I'd known this dump was a hooker hangout, I'd never have come here. Larry, watching him. You seem down on the ladies. Parrot, vindictively. I hate every bitch that ever lived. They're all alike. Catching himself guiltily. You can understand how I feel, can't you? When it was getting mixed up with a tart that made me have that fight with Mother? Then with a resentful sneer. But what the hell does it matter to you? You're in the grandstand. You're through with life. Larry, sharply. I'm glad you remember it. I don't want to know a damned thing about your business. He closes his eyes and settles onto his chair as if preparing for sleep. Parrot stares at him sneeringly. Then he looks away and his expression becomes furtive and frightened. Cora. Who's the guy with Larry? Rocky. A tightwad. To hell with him. Pearl. Say, Cora, wise me up. Which end of a cow is the horns on? Cora, embarrassed. Don't bring that up. I'm sick of hearing about that farm. Rocky. You got nothing on us. Cora, ignoring this. Me and this overgrown tramp has been scrapping about it. He says Joyzy's the best place, and I says Long Island because we'll be near Coney. And I tells him, how do you know you're off your periodicals for life? I don't give a damn how drunk you get the way we are, but I don't want to be married to no soak. Chuck. And I tells her I'm off the stuff for life. And she beefs we won't be married a month before I'll throw it in her face she was a tart. Jeez, baby, I tells her. Why should I? What the hell you think I think I'm marrying, a Voyagin? Why should I kick as long as you lay off it and don't do no cheating with an Iceman or nobody? He gives her a rough hug. That's on the level, baby. He kisses her. Cora, kissing him. You big tramp. Rocky shakes his head with profound disgust. Can you tie it? I'll buy a drink. I'll do anything. He gets up. Cora. No, this round's on me. I run into luck. That's why I dragged Chuck out of bed to celebrate. It was a sailor. I rolled him. She giggles. Listen, it was a scream. I've run into some nutty souses, but this guy was the nuttiest. The booze they dish out around the Brooklyn Navy Yard must be as terrible bug juice as Harry's. My dogs was given out when I seen this guy holding up a lamppost. So I hurried to get him before I copped it. I says, hello, handsome. Want to have a good time? Jeez, he was paralyzed. One of them polite jags. He tries to bow to me. Imagine. And I had to prop him up or he'd fall on his nose. And what do you think he said? Lady, he says, can you kindly tell me the nearest way to the Museum of Natural History? They all laugh. Can you imagine? At 2 a.m., as if I'd know where the dump was anyways. But I says, sure thing, honey boy. I'll be only too glad. I steered him into a side street where it was dark and propped him against the wall and give him a frisk. She giggles. And what do you think he does? Geez, I ain't lying. He begins to laugh, the big sap. He says, quit tickling me. Well, I was frisking him for his roll. I near died. And I twined him around and give him a big push to start him. Just keep going, I told him. It's a big white building on your right. You can't miss it. He must be swimming in the North River yet. They all laugh. Chuck, ain't Uncle Sam the sap to trust guys like that with dough? Cora, with a business-like air. I picked $12 off of him. Come on, Rocky. Set him up. Rocky goes back to the bar. Cora looks around the room. Say, Chuck's kidding about the Iceman about a minute ago. Reminds me, where the hell's Hickey? Rocky, that's what we're all wondering. Cora, he ought to be here. Me and Chuck's seen him. Rocky, excited, comes back from the bar for getting the drinks. You seen Hickey? You nudges Hope. Hey, boss, come too. Cora's seen Hickey. Hope is instantly wide awake, and everyone in the place except Hugo and Parrot begins to rouse up hopefully, as if a mysterious wireless message has gone round. Hope, where'd you see him, Cora? Cora, right on the next corner. He was standing there. We said, welcome to our city. The gang is expecting you with their tongues hanging out a yard long, and I kidded him. How's the Iceman, Hickey? How's he doing at your house? He laughs and says, fine. And he says, tell the gang I'll be along in a minute. I'm just finishing figuring out the best way to save them and bring them peace. Hope chuckles. But geez, he thought up a new gag. It's a wonder he didn't borrow a Salvation Army uniform and show up in that. Go out and get him, Rocky. Tell him we're waiting to be saved. Rocky goes out grinning. Cora, yeah, Harry, he was only kidding. But he was funny too somehow. He was different or something. Chuck, sure, he was sober, baby. That's what made him different. We ain't never seen him when he wasn't on a drunk or he had the willies getting over it. Cora, sure. Gee, ain't I dumb? Hope, with conviction. The dumbest broad I ever seen. Then puzzledly. Sober? That's funny. He's always laughed up a good starter on his way here. Well, but geez, he won't be sober long. He'll be good and ripe for my birthday party tonight at 12. He chuckles with excited anticipation and addressing all of them. Listen. He's fixed some new gag to pull on us. We'll pretend to let him kid us, see, and we'll kid the pants off him. They all say laughingly, sure, Harry. Righto. That's the stuff. We'll fix him, etc., etc. Their faces excited with the same eager anticipation. Rocky appears in the doorway at the end of the bar with Hickey, his arm around Hickey's shoulders. Rocky, with an affectionate grin. Here's the old son of a bitch. They all stand up and greet him with an affectionate acclaim. Hello, Hickey, etc. Even Hugo comes out of his coma to raise his head and blink through his thick spectacles with a welcoming giggle. Hickey, jovially. Hello, gang. He stands a moment, beaming around at all of them affectionately. He is about 50, a little under medium height with a stout roly-poly figure. His face is round and smooth and big boyish with bright blue eyes, a button nose, a small pursed mouth. His head is bald except for a fringe of hair around his temples and the back of his head. His expression is fixed in a salesman's winning smile of self-confident affability and hearty good fellowship. His eyes have the twinkle of a humor which delights in kidding others but can also enjoy equally a joke on himself. He exudes a friendly, generous personality that makes everyone like him on sight. You get the impression, too, that he must have a real ability in his line. There is an efficient, businesslike approach in his manner, and his eyes can take you in shrewdly at a glance. He has the salesman's mannerisms of speech, an easy flow of glib, persuasive convincingness. His clothes are those of a successful drummer whose territory consists of minor cities and small towns. Not flashy, but conspicuously spick and span. He immediately puts on an entrance act, places a hand affectedly on his chest, throws back his head and sings in a falsetto tenor. It's always fair weather when good fellows get together. Changing to a comic bass and another tune, and another little drink won't do us any harm. They all roar with laughter at this burlesque, which his personality makes really funny. He waves his hand in a lordly manner to Rocky. Do your duty, brother Rocky. Bring on the rat poison. Rocky grins and goes behind the bar to get drinks amid an approving cheer from the crowd. Hickey comes forward to shake hands with Hope, with affectionate heartiness. How goes it, governor? Hope, enthusiastically. But geez, Hickey, you old bastard, it's good to see you. Hickey shakes hands with Mosher and McGloin, leans right to shake hands with Margie and Pearl, moves to the middle table to shake hands with Lewis, Joe Mott, Wet Joan, and Jimmy, waves to Willie, Larry, and Hugo. He greets each by name with the same affectionate heartiness, and there is an interchange of how's the kid, how's the old scout, how's the boy, how's everything, etc., etc. Rocky begins setting out drinks, whiskey glasses with chasers, and a bottle for each table, starting with Larry's table. Hope says, Sit down, Hickey. Sit down. Hickey takes a chair facing front at the front of the table in the second row, which is half between Hope's table and the one where Jimmy Tomorrow is. Hope goes on with excited pleasure. Geez, Hickey, it seems natural to see your ugly, grinning map. With a scornful nod to Cora, this dumb broad was trying to tell us you'd changed. But you ain't a damned bit. Tell us about yourself. How've you been doing? But geez, you look like $1 million. Rocky, coming to Hickey's table, puts a bottle of whiskey, a glass, and a chaser on it, then hands Hickey a key. Here's your key, Hickey. Same old room. Hickey shoves the key in his pocket. Thanks, Rocky. I'm going up in a little while and grab a snooze. Haven't been able to sleep lately, and I'm tired as hell. A couple of hours good kip will fix me. Hope, as Rocky puts the drink on his table. First time I ever heard you worry about sleep. But geez, you never would go to bed. He raises his glass, and all the others except Parrot do likewise. Get a few slugs under your belt, and you'll forget sleeping. Here's mud in your eye, Hickey. They all join in with the usual humorous toasts. Hickey, heartily. Drink hearty, boys and girls. They all drink, but Hickey drinks only his chaser. Hope. But geez, is that a new stunt? Drinking your chaser first. Hickey. No, I forgot to tell Rocky. You'll have to excuse me, boys and girls, but I'm off the stuff. For keeps. They stare at him in amazed incredulity. Hope. What the hell? Then with a wink at the others, kiddingly. Sure. Joined the Salvation Army, ain't ya? Been elected president of the WCTU. Take that bottle away from him, Rocky. We don't want to tempt him into sin. He chuckles and the others laugh. Hickey, earnestly. No, honest, Harry. I know it's hard to believe, but... He pauses, then adds simply. Cora was right, Harry. I have changed. I mean, about booze. I don't need it anymore. They all stare, hoping it's a gag, but impressed and disappointed and made vaguely uneasy by the change they now sense in him. Hope. His kidding a bit forced. Yeah, go ahead, kid the pants off us. But geez, Cora said he was coming to save us. Well, go on. Get this joke off your chest. Start the service. Sing a goddamn hymn if you like. We'll all join in the chorus. No drunkard can enter this beautiful home. That's a good one. He forces a cackle. Hickey, grinning. Oh, hell, Governor, you don't think I'd come around here peddling some random temperance bunk, do you? You know me better than that. Just because I'm through with this stuff don't mean I'm going prohibition. Hell, I'm not that ungrateful. It's given me too many good times. I feel exactly the same as I always did. If anyone wants to get drunk, if that's the only way they can be happy and feel at peace with themselves, why the hell shouldn't they? They have my full and entire sympathy. I know all about the game from soup to nuts. I'm the guy that wrote the book. The only reason I've quit is, well, I finally had the guts to face myself and throw overboard the damned lying pipe dream that had been making me miserable, and do what I had to do for the happiness of all concerned. And then all at once I found I was at peace with myself and I didn't need the booze anymore. That's all there is that's all there was to it. He pauses. They are staring at him, uneasy and beginning to feel defensive. Hickey looks round and grins affectionately, apologetically. But what the hell? Don't let me be a wet blanket, making fool speeches about myself. Set him up again, Rocky. Here. He pulls a big roll from his pocket and peels off a $10 bill. The faces of all brighten. Keep the balls coming until this is killed, and then ask for more. Rocky. Geez, a roll that'd choke a hippopotamus. Fill up, yous guys. They all pour out drinks. Hope. That sounds more like you, Hickey. The water wagon bowl. Cut out the act and have a drink, for Christ's sake. Hickey. It's no act, Governor. But don't get me wrong. That don't mean I'm a teetotal grouch and can't be in the party. Hell, why do you suppose I'm here except to have a party? Same as I've always done, and help celebrate your birthday tonight. You've all been good pals to me, the best friends I've ever had. I've been thinking about you ever since I left the house. All the time I was walking over here. Hope. Walking? But geez, do you mean you say you walked? Hickey. I sure did. All the way from the wilds of darkest Astoria. Didn't mind it a bit, either. I seemed to get here before I knew it. I'm a bit tired and sleepy, but otherwise I feel great. Kiddingly. That ought to encourage you, Governor. Show you a little walk around the world is nothing to be so scared about. He winks at the others. Hope stiffens resentfully for a second. Hickey goes on. I didn't make such a bad time either for a fat guy, considering it's a hell of a ways, and I sat in the park a while thinking. It was going on 12 when I went in the bedroom to tell Evelyn I was leaving. 6 hours, say. No, less than that. I'd been standing on the corner some time before Cora and Chuck came along, thinking about all of you. Of course, I was only kidding Cora with that stuff about saving you. And seriously. No, I wasn't either. But I didn't mean booze. I meant save you from pipe dreams. I know now, from my experience, they're the things that really poison and ruin a guy's life and keep him from finding any peace. If you knew how free and contented I feel now, I'm like a new man. And the cure for them is so damned simple once you have the nerve. Just the old dope of honesty is the best policy. Honesty with yourself, I mean. Just stop lying about yourself and kidding yourself about tomorrows. He is staring ahead of him now as if he were talking aloud to himself as much to them. Their eyes are fixed on him with uneasy resentment. His manner becomes apologetic again. Hell, this begins to sound like a damned sermon on the way to lead the good life. Forget that part of it. It's in my blood, I guess. My old man used to wail salvation into my hiney with a birch rod. He was a preacher in the sticks of Indiana, like I've told you. I got my knack of sales gab from him, too. He was the boy who could sell those Hoosier hayseeds building lots along the Golden Street, taking on a salesman's persuasiveness. Now listen, boys and girls. Don't look at me as if I was trying to sell you a gold brick. Nothing up my sleeve, honest. Let's take an example. Any one of you. Take you, Governor. That walk around the ward you never take. Hope, defensively sharp. What about it? Hickey, grinning affectionately. Why, you know as well as I do, Harry. Everything about it. Hope, defiantly. But geez, I'm gonna take it. Hickey. Sure you're going to. This time. Because I'm going to help you. I know it's the thing you've got to do before you'll ever know what real peace means. He looks at Jimmy tomorrow. Same thing with you, Jimmy. You've got to try and get your old job back. And no tomorrow about it. As Jimmy stiffens with a pathetic attempt at dignity, placatingly. No, don't tell me, Jimmy. I know all about tomorrow. I'm the guy that wrote the book. Jimmy. I don't understand you. I admit I've foolishly delayed. As it happens, I just made up my mind that as soon as I could get straightened out. Hickey. Fine. That's the spirit. And I'm going to help you. You've been damned kind to me, Jimmy. And I want to prove how grateful I am. When it's all over and you don't have to nag at yourself anymore, you'll be grateful to me too. He looks around at the others. And all the rest of you, ladies included, are in the same boat one way or another. Larry, who has been listening with sardonic appreciation in his comically intense crazy whisper. God, you've hit the nail on the head, Hickey. This dump is the Palace of Pipe Dreams. Hickey grins at him with affectionate kidding. Well, the old grandstand philosopher speaks. You think you're the big exception, eh? Life doesn't mean a damn to you anymore, does it? You retired from the circus. You're just waiting impatiently for the end, the good old long sleep, he chuckles. Well, I think a lot of you, Larry, you old bastard. I'll try and make an honest man of you, too. Larry, stung. What the devil are you hinting at, anyway? Hickey. You don't have to ask me, do you? A wise old guy like you. Just ask yourself. I'll bet you know. Parrot is watching Larry's face with a curious, sneering satisfaction. He's got your number all right, Larry. He turns to Hickey. That's the stuff, Hickey. Show the old faker up. He's got no right to sneak out of everything. Hickey regards him with a surprise at first, then with a puzzled interest. Hello. A stranger in our midst. I didn't notice you before, brother. Parrot, embarrassed, his eyes shifting away. My name's Parrot. I'm an old friend of Larry's. His eyes come back to Hickey to find him still sizing him up defensively. Well, what are you staring at? Hickey, continuing to stare puzzledly. No offense, brother, I was trying to figure... Haven't we met before someplace? Parrot, reassured. No. First time I've ever been east. Hickey. No, you're right. I know that's not it. In my game, to be a shark at it, you teach yourself never to forget a name or a face. But still, I know damned well I recognized something about you. We're members of the same lodge, in some way. Parrot, uneasy again. What are you talking about? You're nuts. Hickey, dryly. Don't try to kid me, little boy. I'm a good salesman. So damned good the firm was glad to take me back after every drunk... And what made me good was I could size up anyone. Frowningly puzzled again. But I don't see. Suddenly breezily good-natured. Never mind. I can tell you're having trouble with yourself, and I'll be glad to do anything I can to help a friend of Larry's. Larry, mind your own business, Hickey. He's nothing to you, or to me either. Hickey gives him a keen, inquisitive glance. Larry looks away and goes on sarcastically. You're keeping us all in suspense. Tell us more about how you're going to save us. Hickey, good-naturedly but seeming a little hurt. Hell, don't get sore, Larry. Not at me. We've always been good pals, haven't we? I know I've always liked you a lot. Larry, a bit shamefaced. Well, so have I liked you. Forget it, Hickey. Hickey, beaming. Fine, that's the spirit. Looking around at the others who have forgotten their drinks. What's the matter, everybody? What is this, a funeral? Come on and drink up. A little action. They all drink. Have another. Hell, this is a celebration. Forget it if anything I've said sounds too serious. I don't want to be a pain in the neck. Anytime you think I'm talking out of turn, just tell me to go chase myself. He yawns with growing drowsiness, and his voice grows a bit muffled. No, boys and girls, I'm not trying to put anything over on you. It's just that I know now from experience what a lying pipe dream can do to you, and how damned relieved and contented with yourself you feel when you're rid of it. He yawns again. God, I'm sleepy all of a sudden. That long walk is beginning to get me. I better go upstairs. Hell of a trick to go dead on you like this. He starts to get up but relaxes again. His eyes blink as he tries to keep them open. No, boys and girls, I've never known what real peace was until now. It's a grand feeling. Like when you're sick and suffering like hell and the doc gives you a shot in the arm. And the pain goes, and you drift off. His eyes close. You can let go of yourself at last. Let yourself sink down to the bottom of the sea. Rest in peace. There's no farther you have to go. Not a single damned hope or dream left to nag you. You'll all know what I mean after He pauses, mumbles. Excuse... All in. Gotta grab 40 winks. Drink up, everybody. On me. The sleep of complete exhaustion overpowers him. His chin sags to his chest. They stare at him with puzzled, uneasy fascination. Hope, forcing a tone of irritation. But geez, that's a fine stunt, to go to sleep on us. Then fumingly to the crowd. Well, what the hell's the matter with you bums? Why don't you drink up? You're always crying for booze, and now you've got it under your nose, you sit like dummies. They start and gulp down their whiskeys and pour another. Hope stares at Hickey. Geez, I can't figure Hickey. I still say he's kidding us. Kid his own grandmother, Hickey would. What do you think, Jimmy? Jimmy, unconvincingly. It must be another of his jokes. Harry, although, well, he does appear changed. But he'll probably be his natural self again tomorrow. Hastily. When he wakes up. Larry, staring at Hickey frowningly. More aloud to himself than to them. You'll make a mistake if you think he's only kidding. Parrot, and a low, confidential voice. I don't like that guy, Larry. He's too damned nosy. I'm going to steer clear of him. Larry gives him a suspicious glance, then looks hastily away. Jimmy, with an attempt at open-minded reasonableness. Still, Harry, I have to admit there was some sense in his nonsense. It is time I got my job back, although I hardly need him to remind me. Hope, with an air of frankness. Yes, and I ought to take a walk around the ward. But I don't need no hickey, seeing I got it all set for my birthday tomorrow. Larry sardonically. Ha. Then in his comically intense crazy whisper, God, it looks like he's going to make 2 sales of his piece of glass. But you'd better make sure first it's the real McCoy and not poison. Hope, disturbed angrily. You bug house I won't work harp. Who asked you to shove it in an oar? What the hell do you mean, poison? Just because he has your number. He immediately feels ashamed of this taunt and adds apologetically. But geez, Larry, you're always croaking about something to do with death. It gets my nanny. Come on, fellers, let's drink up. They drink. Hope's eyes are fixed on Hickey again, stone cold sober and dead to the world, spilling that business about pipe dreams. But geez, I don't get it. He bursts out again in angry complaint. He ain't like the old Hickey. He'll be a fine wet blanket to have around at my birthday party. I wish to hell he'd never turned up. Mosher, who has been the least impressed by Hickey's talk, and is the first to recover and feel the effect of the drinks on top of his hangover genially. Give him time, Harry, and he'll come out of it. I've watched many cases of almost fatal teetotalism, but they all came out of it completely cured and as drunk as ever. My opinion is the poor sap is temporarily bug-housed from overwork. Musingly. You can't be too careful about work. It's the deadliest habit known to science. A great physician once told me. He practiced on street corners under a torchlight. He was positively the only doctor in the world who claimed that rattlesnake oil rubbed on the Pratt would cure heart failure in 3 days. I remember well his saying to me, "You are naturally delicate, Ed, but if you drink a pint of bad whiskey before breakfast every evening, and never work if you can help it, you may live to a ripe old age. It's staying sober and working that cuts men off in their prime." While he is talking, they turn to him with eager grins. They are longing to laugh, and as he finishes, they roar. Even Parrot laughs. Hickey sleeps on like a dead man, but Hugo, who has passed into his customary coma again, head on table, looks up through his thick spectacles and giggles foolishly. Hugo, blinking around at them. As the laughter dies, he speaks in his giggling, wheedling manner as if he were playfully teasing children. Laugh, little bourgeois monkey faces. Laugh like fools, little stupid peoples. His tone suddenly changes to one of guttural soapbox denunciation, and he pounds on the table with a small fist. I will laugh too, but I will laugh last. I will laugh at you. He declaims his favorite quotation. The days grow hot, O Babylon. 'Tis cool beneath thy willow trees. They all hoot him down in a chorus of amused jeering. Hugo is not offended. This is evidently their customary reaction. He giggles good-naturedly. Hickey sleeps on. They all have forgotten their uneasiness about him now and ignore him. Louis, tipsily. Well, now that our little Robespierre has got the daily bit of guillotining off his chest, tell me more about your doctor friend, Ed. He strikes me as the only bloody sensible medico I ever heard of. I think we should appoint him house physician here without a moment's delay. They all laughingly assent. Mosher, warming to his subject, shakes his head sadly. Too late. The old doc has passed on to his maker, a victim of overwork too. He didn't follow his own advice, kept his nose to the grindstone, and sold 1 bottle of snake oil too many. Only 80 years old when he was taken. The saddest part was that he knew he was doomed. The last time we got paralyzed together, he told me, "This game will get me yet, Ed." You see before you a broken man, a martyr to medical silence, a martyr to medical science. If I had any nerves, I'd have a nervous breakdown. You won't believe me, but this last year, there was actually one night I had so many patients I didn't even have time to get drunk. The shock to my system brought on a stroke, which, as a doctor, I recognized was the beginning of the end. Poor old Doc. When he said this, he started crying. I hate to go before my task is completed, Ed, he sobbed. I'd hoped I'd live to see the day when, thanks to my miraculous cure, there wouldn't be a single vacant cemetery lot in this glorious country. There is a roar of laughter. He waits for it to die, and then goes on sadly. I miss Doc. He was a gentleman of the old school. I'll bet he's standing on a street corner in hell right now, making suckers of the damned, telling them there's nothing like snake oil for a bad burn. There is another roar of laughter. This time it penetrates Hickey's exhausted slumber. He stirs on his chair, trying to wake up, managing to raise his head a little and force his eyes half open. He speaks with a drowsy, affectionately encouraging smile. At once the laughter stops abruptly, and they turn to him startledly. Hickey. That's the spirit. Don't let me be a wet blanket. All I want is to see you happy. He slips back into heavy sleep again. They all stare at him, their faces again puzzled, resentful, and uneasy. Curtain.